Peace, greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, aka Mr. Just the Facts. Family, share the video out. Make sure y'all share this video out. Even if you are watching the replay of this video, make sure you share it out. Shout out to everybody that's in the building. BTP Riri, what's good, sis? I see you. We're gonna have a discussion tonight about the reparations movement moving forward. It's a double entendre, if you will, that title. The reparations movement is moving forward, and that is a fact. That is a fact. And it is now in the hands of more durable, capable men and women of good and sound character, moving this thing forward. The title also is, now that we're moving forward, like where do we go from here? And I want people to understand that this Supreme Court case that has come out, and the bros and I were just going over it earlier, and we were going over this powerful article that I forgot to share, hit share on Twitter, but I'll share that out in a minute. Shout out real quick. Vince Jefferson is plugged in. Sister Satra Del Reed. BTP Shannon is on deck. BTP Dre, what's good, bro? Gina Bourne, how you doing, fam? So we were reading from this Politico article, and we're going to get into that later. We're going to get into that later. That article was everything. That Politico article was everything. And, you know, everyone was sharing the article from The Atlantic. They were sharing that article because it, you know, confirmation bias. And the confirmation bias is coming from a bunch of liberals who do not like this decision because it really exposed the diversity grift. And we're going to get into a little bit of that later. It exposed that diversity grift. Or it exposed it. It's like that grift is over. No, the question was asked, is affirmative action dead? Yeah, for y'all. in many senses for y'all, but affirmative action did not die for the freedmen. Oh, no, it did not. And we're going to touch on that a little bit today. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Make sure y'all share the video out. I'm having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to be broadcasting from my phone tonight, so things may be just a little off. Just a little bit. I'm waiting for the bros to come on, and we're gonna have a discussion. We are gonna have a discussion. We're gonna read this article too. We are gonna read this article. Shout out to Sister Camilla Moore, because she was the one that sent this article. Powerful article from Politico, because everybody wanted to highlight Adam Serwer's article in The Atlantic, and we are finishing up our rebuttal to that article. Easy work. And we're not juris doctorates. You know, we just one of us, you know, American freedmen. We ain't past the bar, but we know a little bit, as Jay said, right? You know, peace, Sister Roz, what's going on, sis? Texas Freedmen Affairs Pack is in the building. Said it's a lot of people in this movement who are low-key Democrat shills anyways. So it's to be expected. Yes, they are. And they've been being exposed. They've been being exposed as being wrong on a lot of stuff and helping to push that liberal agenda, right? You got the right-wing agenda, that's in your face. But then you got the liberal agenda, which was just exposed by this case, which was also exposed, which also exposed, excuse me, all of those closet liberal Democrats. It exposed them. We see what you're on, and you're pushing for race-based reparations. Nah, that don't work. That don't work, and it won't work. That's what the court just said. Muffin Nellin, what's going on? Sister Cosetta Ursula said the Little Rock is in the class. No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Shout out to the fam. Charlie Jacobs, what's going on? Truth to Power, peace, peace. Cash 504, what's going on? Black Seed, the child of life is in the building. DMV Freedmen family from all over the country. Assemble. Assemble. And they mad, yo. People are mad out there, y'all. Man, they think that they're arguing with us. It's like, nah, y'all not arguing with us. Y'all arguing with the Supreme Court. I mean, you got people out there just making up stuff. They don't even care. You start asking people questions. Have you read the case? No, I haven't read the case. How do you have an opinion on that which you have not read? Where they do that at? Where they do that at? We got Brother Ali in the building.
In the hood, on Twitter. You know, they start Twitter fingering. You know, they mad. I said, didn't I say before that BTP is not a proxy for the Supreme Court? It's like, stop coming at BTP, man.
That's
God
right.
Dang, man. Y'all gotta argue with the court, B. Or go find Clarence Thomas and argue with that dude or something.
That's all you gotta do. File a case. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Go file a case, right, at the district court, challenging the ruling in well, you can't necessarily challenge that ruling, but challenge I don't know, the race admissions of Harvard and UNC, and see if you can get that reinstated under Negro. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah, man. Push. I want, like, I would love to see it.
Me too.
Love to see it.
Yes.
Get that Negro thing popping, B.
That's what I'm saying.
I want to see it.
You got these obstructionists out here, these plants that's running around on Twitter that really believe that them misconstruing the stuff that we're posting and pushing for Negro this and Negro that, or even adding Negro to freedmen. We've seen that with P. Denise Long, bro. It wasn't shocking, but that was crazy.
There's a term for that. It's called monkeying it up.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's called.
What they trying to do, monkey it up.
That's exactly what they're trying to do. Monkey it up. It's exactly what they're trying to do. We're going to add the term Negro and make it co-equal with the term freedman. After the courts just said freedman is a race-neutral term, then still try to argue that freedman is a race-neutral term. What in the cognitive dissonance is that? What
Crazy.
in the
Crazy. Well, that's because some people trying to pretend that Negro is not a race term, right? They're listening to this guy who has a problem reading and comprehending what he reads. That's very apparent. Where he thinks that playing some kind of game with the word race and racial changes what this stuff is. The fact of the matter is like, and those was in his space, it was said to him, race is the root word of the word racial. Right? So at the root, they mean the same thing. One is an adjective describing the noun, and that's it. That's it, right? You're just talking about the different parts of speech here. Really that simple.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I can't wait to get into this article, Ali. I can't wait to get into it. Wait for Josh to jump on.
All right, so cool.
You know, so we could talk our shit. You know, let's talk a little bit. We talk about the movement moving forward, but
yeah, we got another source. I mean, there's more sources, right? Regarding the term freedman and who it encompasses. There's another source, but we ain't put it out. Like, it's just, look, it's like giving out legal advice for free, right? And then the people rejecting the stuff after we, like, yo, man, like, we could be charging people for this stuff. Like, we shouldn't really be charging these people for this information, especially you see how they be like, yo, y'all got the information, but y'all got everybody blocked. Yeah, because you should really be paying us, to be honest with you.
Kick out that bread, B. Straight up. Come get the classes in session.
Getting free legal advice, right? And you know it was free legal advice because you got the daggone highest court in the land that's corroborating the stuff we said.
That's right.
So we was giving y'all free legal advice, but y'all rejecting it to talk about y'all some goddamn beasts of the field.
That's right.
What?
That's right. And you know that because that's what immigrants do, right? If you look at how a lot of the Black immigrants operate in this space, they're always trying to take people off the path, and they can trick some of these people that's in this space who are adverse to us, only because they want to be adverse to us, and make it seem as if they're not immigrants, or you know, and that y'all shouldn't be standing on nothing but something that's BS, something that's bogus at all. So, man, I'm it's a lot going on in the chat. People talk about I ain't gonna say that on the air. I ain't gonna say I mean, but we could talk about it. If you want to talk about it, we could talk about it. Go ahead, bro.
Since you brought up immigrant, I think the you know, I'm just gonna say it. I think the dude pushing this Negro thing is an immigrant.
Oh yeah, I believe he is. He looks like one.
He is. He looks like it. Like now, y'all, some of y'all might be like, oh, y'all just saying that. Nah. You gotta look at him really good. Look at him good, right? Look at him good, because you got. I mean, come on, man. We know our people. We know our family, right? We have our look. Other people from the outside have their looks, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody is beautiful. I'm not saying that there's anything ugly about the differences. I just said that division is divine, right? Because it came from God, right?
That's right.
It came from God. So the division, we acknowledge that. And the fact of the matter is, he looks like somebody else. He don't look like one of our family members. And he's doing something. Hold on 1 second. Hold up.
That's right. Look, shout out to Iron Physique. Shout out to Black Contraband. Brother Ern is in the building. What's going on? Detroit Freedmen is on deck. DMV Freedmen on deck. Virginia Freedmen are on deck. Los Angeles Freedmen. Bay Area Freedmen. Cali Freedmen are on deck. Freedmen assemble.
So what? That's right. The Freedmen assembled today. So what I was trying to say is that
they sure did. Go ahead.
What he's doing is something that other foreign people have done, like you said, take you off the path. But that's what they like to do, and then they like to always try to invoke all of these terminologies that then can be used to include them. Like, we're Negroes, yeah, but Garvey was, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of people that would claim to be. A lot of these people that were
Hubert Harrison. That's right.
Hubert Harrison. One love to Hubert. Like, look, but I'm just saying this is what they like to do because they want to include themselves. And I understand the desire to do that, but that's not what this is about. That's not what it's about. And go ahead.
No. The fact that they're failing. That's what I'm saying, bro. It's not that they're even failing to see that. They are intentional in what it is that they are doing. This is an intentional thing. They want to muddy it up. They really, really believe that somehow what they're doing on Twitter is having some effect, and that it's correlative in any situation. But it's not. What we're doing,
right? Not
just on no Twitter, but in the real world, because we know what we're doing. It's correlative, and the Supreme Court just proved that. Proved it. You had Yvette Carnell. Did you hear Yvette? Oh man, that was crazy.
What she said?
Yvette was like, for Freedmen. That's us, dude.
That's us, dude. Free from what? Slavery. Slavery.
Free from, that's
Right.
right. Free from what? Slavery?
Yo, man. Come on, yo. It's on
You
recording.
know?
Like, she could try to walk it back all she want.
Of course.
Like, I
Of
seen she
course.
put the tweet out talking about with all of this back and forth about the term freedman that Clarence Thomas done caused. They should tell you that our hashtag, you know what she said, our acronym is the most accurate. Listen, man, see, this is what I mean. We're talking about serious stuff, Supreme Court serious stuff, and she's talking about acronyms. Acronyms.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And there was a whole Reuters article that came out talking about the American descendants of slavery, and they were all Europeans who are descendants of slave owners in the various legislative or government places around the country.
That's right. That's right.
That you're talking about the most accurate, man. Come on, read the Reuters article, Yvette. Come on now, just read the Reuters article. You guys are bugging out. Now, what you should have tried to do was change your thing to descendants of slaves. That's what you should have done.
That would have been a smart thing to do.
That would have been a smart thing to do.
It would have been an easier sell. You know, of course, we would have still been able to chop it down if we were debating it, because slavery was a condition. And we put this in our letter that we attempted to submit as an amicus to the Supreme Court. And, you know, we basically broke that down. It's like, you know, slavery was a condition. And there's, you know, connotative and denotative differences between slavery and freedmen. And, well, as a condition, then those people who were enslaved in this country, although and albeit illegally and unconstitutionally, they were held in bondage. But with the passage of the 13th Amendment in 1865, abolishing that practice, those people still held in bondage received a new condition. And that new condition was freedmen. This was the government attempting to repair based on a compelling governmental interest, harm that it and its private citizens were allowed to cause. So, you know, this isn't, it's not hard to break down. So it's like, okay, well, are you descendants of slaves? This is why they attack Ali in the way that they do. That's why these other people attack. And
Yep.
shout out to our New York freedmen in the building. Shout out to Brother Divine. You know, Restitution Radio was in the building. He said, New York freedmen stand up. Jonathan Bryant, what's going on, bro? What's going on? You know, our Boston freedmen are on deck. The New England freedmen, they're out there putting in work too. They're out there putting in work too. But yeah, Ali, I mean, you know, this thing is, you know, you try to go with the slave thing, and it's like, okay, what I was saying was, it's like, well, you aren't a slave. Okay, cool. But I am a freedman. Right. And we were able to show that. We were able to show that freedmen, in the legal definition, in the legal context, referred to not only the newly emancipated, but also their descendants.
Right. Right. And there are a number of state cases that attest to this fact. Now, people were online talking about a federal definition of freedmen. Let's just be clear and honest about that. There is no federal definition of the word freedmen, right? That you're going to find. We haven't found that, right? The closest that you get to it is something in the explanation that they give in the charter for the Freedmen's Bank, where they talk about the bank and the deposits in the bank being for those persons heretofore held in slavery and their descendants. That's the closest you're going to get to it, right? Then you got to understand state law, right, is something that's guaranteed to the states by way of the 10th Amendment. If there's no federal law, you're going to have to go with the laws of the state. And so this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the fact that these state courts are explaining that this term was used to apply not only to the emancipated, but to their descendants.
That's right.
Nobody has the right to try to tell us we ain't the descendants of the emancipated who are covered under this terminology and a member of this class of peoples or class of persons known as freedmen. You can't tell us that we're not, because there's no law to say that we aren't.
That's right.
Now you could Twitter babble all you want.
That's right.
But that doesn't change the facts. There's no law that says you guys are no longer freedmen, right? You're no longer of this particular class of persons for whom we enacted all of these legislations and policies in order to remedy and repair the conditions.
That's right.
If that's the case, if you are not a member of that particular class of persons for whom all of the remedy and repair was created, then you have no remedy and repair to seek. So you need to just stop talking about reparations right now.
Man, sis, I need a bomb emoji. One of the sisters says she gonna help. Shout out to our sister Fate XX. But man, I need to drop a bomb, something right now. And I got homie cocking the shotgun because we locked and loaded up in here tonight. But I need something to. I need one of these overlays to really, you know, whenever one of the bros make one of them points like that, we got to pull something up on the screen and highlight just how powerful it is. In New York, we said, Flex, drop a bomb on that.
So see, it's a gift horse, right?
Was good.
That's what I was just saying to my sister Kelly. We were talking before we got on. I said this is really a gift horse. Now, people don't see it that way, right? Because especially the people who are of the Democratic persuasion, they don't see it that way. They see it as, oh man, this is a bad thing for so-called black people, right? It's a bad thing. This affirmative action thing is just a bad thing. And Clarence Thomas, he's really just this bad guy right now. I don't listen. Clarence Thomas did some things. Like I said, I'm not no Clarence Thomas apologist. That ain't even the point.
That's right.
But the fact of the matter is, he put some things in place since 2003. Now we're gonna get into that. I'm not gonna speak on it, but since 2003, this man has he has laid some things down. That opens the pathway for us to get the repair that we're looking for without the invocation of race. Now people don't respect that because they want to do all of this black stuff, all of this coloring crayon shit, right?
That's what people want to reparations.
Do. Black reparations and reparations for black Americans in whatever century. You know, I'm just saying. I'm just saying now. I'm just saying, right? One love.
I'm just saying.
One love. I'm just saying, though.
I'm just saying. Just saying. And the fact remains that we've been beating this drum the whole time. And you have certain individuals that have been actively trying to undermine what it is that we're doing. If it's the Back South strategy, and we're talking about going to Georgia and Alabama, and Mississippi, Louisiana, South Cackalack, as we used to say from the hood, North Cackalack, you know, in these southern states. And somebody say, well, what about Wyoming and what was the other one? Montana. Like, what? Who wants to go, as Josh says, live in icy isolation? That makes absolutely no sense. But this is some of the subtle manipulations and mind fucks that some certain individuals have been trying to do. Now these same people was talking about freedmen was only confined to the newly emancipated slaves, not their descendants.
Where? Like, see, this is what I mean. Like, people been sick. That's not even a new claim, right? People from the ADOS group, people from different places, they've been making that claim, and I would always ask them to show them proof. Show me the legislation. Show me because they said the freedmen status was dissolved, or what they say? What's the other word? Dissolved, basically, right?
Yeah, basically.
It was dissolved at a certain point. You know, when the basically they're trying to say when the Freedmen's Bureau closed down, that's when the freedmen, the status of freedmen for these particular people went away. Like this is just, I mean, that's a certain level of ignorance that is just like, wow. So you're saying that them being freed men and women was contingent upon the existence of this bureau that came into effect after they were emancipated. After.
Yep, that's what they saying.
That's the silly shit. This is what I'm saying, man. Like some of these people is like they don't even deserve the light, bro. A lot of them deserve to stay in darkness.
Yeah, stay in utter darkness. Because we trying to bring our people into the marvelous light. And that's exactly what we are doing. That's a part of the job description here at BTP. Shout out to Sister Buffalo. Shout out to Sister Buffalo. Sister Buffalo made a powerful tweet. I can't share my screen right now, fam. I'm having some technical issues with the PC. So I am broadcasting from my phone. So I want to, let me see. I want to read Sister Buffalo's tweet because that was such a powerful tweet on that thread. And I don't want something like that to just get skipped over, because what it's showing is that, you know, outside of us, if people just read for themselves, they're going to get it. And we don't have to hold nobody's hand. And these are people that ask questions. Sister Buffalo always hit me up with questions, and I'm always able to provide an answer based on the knowledge that I have. And if I don't know something, I'll just be like, yo, I don't know, fam. I don't know. If I come across some information on that, then I'll get back. As freedmen. We classify them as freedmen. So let me read Sister Buffalo's response. This was powerful. This was powerful. She said, seems to me from this, and she posted a screenshot about the 13th Amendment, and I'm gonna get into that. Somebody just popped in. Hold on. Oh, Ali dropped off. Let me add him back to the stream. Okay, there go Josh as well. So Sister Buffalo said, seems to me from this, and I'll read the screenshot, that the amendment did not cure the defect, but instead gave Congress the authority to cure the defect. which they to this day have not done. If that is the case, wouldn't we still be held in the transitory phase and will remain there until our redress? Y'all let me know if y'all can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
I think everything had went out for a minute, but not
okay.
dropped off.
All right. It could be because I was off of the. I have to move the page and go to the Twitter app. So I don't know if I'm going to cut out again. But what she said was powerful. That the amendments did not cure the defect, but instead gave Congress the authority to cure the defect, which they to this day have not done. If that is the case, wouldn't we still be held in the transitory phase and will remain there until our redress? And I'm not going to read the 13th of the screenshot she did from the 13th Amendment. Sister Shanna put that tweet in the chat. Shout out to BTP Shanna. Shout out to anybody that I may miss. Sister Frida, what's going on, Sister Frida? Brother Will L, what's going on, Brother Will L? Okay, yeah, it seemed like I was muted for a minute. That's because I had to switch to the Twitter app to read that powerful tweet. All of those oppositionalists that were on that Darity thread got shut down today. They got shut down today, including the good doctor himself. Like, people see this thing for what it is. And, you know, our position is to not be beefing and arguing with people. People think that. But what we're doing is we're responding to a lot of the BS. And sometimes there's a cumulative buildup of things that we ignore out of the sake of deference. But when you got to check somebody, they just got to be checked. I don't care who it is. Because if what they're saying is detrimental to how we are moving forward, and they are taking the side of the liberals that are sharing that Atlantic tweet over brothers like Prime. Shout out to Prime and the rest of the reparationists out there that's fighting that good fight and letting their voices be heard. Then we already know what the problem is. Because that person, that Professor Terra, whatever her last name is, she got it wrong. That Atlantic article got it wrong. And she needed to know that she got it wrong. And if she's going to push and keep pushing a false narrative, then she absolutely is a daughter of the lost cause teachings. Point blank, period. Shout out, Bond Dog. Support, my bad. I ain't mean to get on my soapbox like that, but you know, it's time to point our fingers in some people's chests right now. Because the fate of our progeny, our fate and the fate of our progeny, it's not up for play. It's not up for, I don't want this to be this way because I want this to be that way. And so I'm going to ignore the right way. No, it ain't up for any of that. So right now we just pointing our fingers in a couple people's chests moving forward. Hey, yo, support the channel, fam. $ Be the Power on Cash App. You can use the super chat feature, although Twitter is acting up with the super chats right now. You can support via the website, usadof.org, our nonprofit. Make that tax-free or that tax-exempt donation and claim that next year on your taxes to our 501c3. Brother Josh. Okay, Josh is finishing up some things. We're about to get into this article, right? We are about to get into this article from the Atlantic, and I want to share that.
Is it from the Atlantic or Politico?
I mean, excuse me, from Politico. My bad. That trumps the Atlantic argument. I mean, article. I'm trying to read and talk at the same. Tara Hunter. Thank you, Shanna Friedman. Thank you. Tara Hunter is her name. She's wrong. And then she tried to come at Devon on some, who are you again? No. Who are you? Because I never heard of you before I seen that tweet. I never heard of you before I seen that tweet. Who are you? Because if you're wrong on this, what are you getting wrong as a history professor at whatever school you teach at? So, you got to start asking them questions now. This is reparations for American freedmen. Affirmative action was created for American freedmen, and that's what Justice Thomas laid out. It's people like, oh, Justice Thomas was a coon. Y'all thinking he didn't know. No, we ain't thinking nothing. We know what we know because we're reading it with our own eyes and interpreting it and breaking it down with our own minds. So can't nobody tell us anything. Nobody. So, Brother Josh, whenever you're ready, I think you should be able to share that article, and we should be able to go from there. Because I want people to understand how powerful this article is. So I guess, yeah. All right. So we waiting for Josh. Go ahead, Ali.
People have to really. What you say, Josh?
No, I say I got the article. You should see the article. Let me know if you can see it.
All right.
No, I can't see it yet, bro.
You don't see it, Ali?
No.
Okay. All right,
maybe there's another step to it.
Say stop share.
You on the computer?
Yeah.
All right.
Present, share screen, Chrome tab. Now do you see it?
No. Did you accept the admin thing invite I sent you?
Let me just look in here.
How do I do that? Oh Lord.
Oh, it won't let me put it. Oh, okay. Let me.
All right. So go ahead, Ali. What you was gonna say?
Yeah,
bro?
What I was gonna say is what people gotta get out of our folks, right? Because they're upholding these stereotypes about Black folks not wanting to read. You gotta get out of this anti-intellectual thing and people seeming like they having problems with reading. Like, oh yeah, I read, doing all this reading. Yeah, we do a lot of reading. Yes, absolutely. We do a lot of reading. That should not be a problem for Black folks, right? Unless you one of them type of Black people trying to uphold that bullshit stereotype about Black people don't want to read. And if you want to hide something from a nigga, put it in a book, right? Unless you're trying to uphold that, then stop it with all this anti-intellectual having problems with reading type shit. Like that shit is corny. That's corny, man. And I hear it too much. And it's like, people trying to shame people for reading. It's like, yo, you do all this reading, Yo, reading is like, listen, what are you supposed to do without reading? Like, if you can't read, like,
Negro
really,
babble.
like, what's supposed?
You're supposed to Negro babble.
Yeah, man. That's come on. Even when you're politically active, you should be able to read. Right? You should be able to be politically active and be an informed politically active person, and that would have to, and for me, it would be, comes largely by way of reading. So I think we can't act like reading is some sort of a problem, right? And it's just too much of that kind of rhetoric being thrown around by a lot of people, man. Start reading, B. Just start reading. Start reading. Ain't nothing wrong with reading.
That's right. Peace to the MD20. Brother Truth to Power said not only that it's corny to be anti-government or anti-political. That's a fact. I'll be in the Twitter space. You got this dude, I call him a garbage pail kid, talk about he running for president out of California, Ali. This dude ain't got comprehension of first. Got comprehension of first, and somehow he running for president. You can't get elected dog catcher in your county, but you're gonna run for the highest office of the land. This is what's going on in these Twitter streets. It's irrelevant. We bring it up though because they think it's relevant, and we just speak into it a little bit, because
shout out to my brother Kevin Wilson, councilman in Englewood, New Jersey. Shout out my brother Mike Jackson in city government out there in Paterson, New Jersey. Shout out to Mike Jackson. These are the bros, you know what I'm saying, doing real shit. You know what I mean? And I like to do shit with people who do shit.
Facts. Because that's what we do. We do shit with people that do shit. Was you able to figure it out, Josh?
Yep.
Peace,
Can you
Sister
hear me?
Isla. What's going on, sis? Yep, yep.
All right, hold up. I'm just trying to do one more thing real quick. Uh, what is this?
One fish, two fish. Red fish,
Red
blue
fish,
fish.
blue fish, knick knack, paddywhack. That's how these dudes be sounding in the Twitter spaces. One fish. The metamucil of the cuticles that move through. Man, shut your.
Hey, bro, it's codified. It's codified in the Code of Federal Regulations, and it's codified as Negro, and it's not a race.
Codification,
You know
or
what I'm
should I say,
saying?
Codfish Nation.
You know what I'm saying?
Shut your ass up, dude. Nobody, we don't believe you. You need more people. Ain't
All right,
nobody
now
trying
you
to
see
hear
it?
that Negro
Yep.
babble. There we go.
Yep.
There we
All
go.
right, cool.
There we go. All right, y'all.
Ooh.
All right, y'all. Family. Please
this
pay
video
attention.
Share this one out. You gotta
Yeah, y'all
share
make
this
sure
link out.
share this video out. Share the link out. Click that like button if you are not subscribed to the channel. Hit the subscribe button. Hit that little bell icon next to the subscribe button so that you'll be notified every single time BTP goes live. You become a part of the notification nation. And every time we drop our dynamic content, you're going to see that joint pop up. Make sure y'all and support the platform. $ Cash App, $ Be the Power. Use that super chat, although we kind of ain't messing with the super chats right now, but we ain't turning down the super chats. Support the platform in any way you can. Go to usadof.org, make a contribution to the nonprofit. We're about to get busy. Y'all pay attention because this article right here is everything. Go ahead, bro.
And I got some emails from a bunch of people, and I owe a response. I'm gonna give that out. I'll be responding shortly. So, but I just want to put that out. So we got a lot of response, a lot of stuff to do. You know, this is like we got a lot to do. But let's go.
And shout out to the Freedman Queen, Sister Camilla Moore, the Freedman Queen.
Fact. Shout out to the Freedman Queen. That's right. Stop playing.
Yes, indeed. So how white people stole affirmative action and ensured its demise. If elite colleges owned up to their racism, the Supreme Court might rule differently. Hey, Ali.
Sound a little low to me.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it just seemed a little low to me. I don't know if I'm correct in saying that, but to me it sounds a little low.
It's just a little, you sound distant a little bit. Blow your browser up too, Josh.
All right, I got you.
As much as you can to fill a screen. All right, yeah, perfect.
All right. So did y'all want to give a little background, or did you already give a little background on this?
No, we didn't give any background. Not to this article, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, all I said was this is the article that people need to be reading because it's a non-biased article and this brother gets it right. The only thing that's missing is his understanding of one particular nuance. And Josh was pointing that out earlier. And that's the looking at this case through the view of freedmen's status. But other than that, oh, man, listen. Go ahead, Josh.
We're gonna jump right into it. So go ahead.
Go ahead, bro.
So, all right. Following a recent talk at the University of Pennsylvania Carey Law School, I shared lunch with several students from First Generation Professionals, the sponsoring organization. Now, this is coming from Evan Mandery, professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. So he says, I was eager to explore the commonalities between their experiences and those of my own students at the City University of New York, about half of whom are the first in their family to attend college. We identified many similarities but more differences, which confused me until someone explained that Penn uses the American Bar Association definition of first generation, which is that a student is the first in their family to attend law school, not college. All right. That would mean, quote, that would mean,
Hold on, Josh. People saying you might just need to be a little bit closer to your microphone.
crazy thing is I'm almost got this thing in my mouth. So
What you on the headset?
yeah.
We can hear you though.
Let me unplug it and plug it back.
We can hear you.
Is this any better?
A little bit.
Is this any better? All right, hold up. Let me see if I can.
Shout out to my brother Do It All, Do Kelly, councilman, Newark, New Jersey, former member. He's still a member. Y'all remember the group Lords of the Underground?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Do It All and Mr. Funky. You know what I'm saying?
Is this any better?
That's our bro. Yeah, you sound. Say it again, Josh. Go ahead.
Test it.
Nah, you sound the same.
Damn.
You sound the same.
Can
you come in with your phone too, and then just use the microphone from your phone?
Let me do something else.
I mean, we can hear you. I can hear you, but I don't know if they can hear you as good as we can hear you, because they're saying
sound low, sound far away, sound distant.
Is this any better?
Not really.
All right, hold on.
So
just give me a second. I'm gonna go get my other headset.
Yep. Yeah, man. So yeah, Laws of the Underground. My brother Do It All, Do Kelly here, councilman out there in Newark, New Jersey as well. Shout out to that brother. Yep. So you know what I mean? That's what it is.
All right, somebody said Josh sounded good in the chat. So I don't know. Come on, Josh. Let's just roll with it, bro.
He went, I think he left the room. I think he went to go get something. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Got to run for office. Marcel always talking about that. Marcel, man, Marcel said, you got all of these people all with their panties all in a bunch about what happened in Tulsa, you know, in terms of these elders getting their cases rejected, but ain't nobody talking about they running for office.
Facts.
Yeah, man.
Shout out
anybody
to
listening,
789, Gina Bourne. Yeah, go ahead, Ali.
Anybody listening to Stephen Hunter is crazy. Let me just say this. You got to be crazy to take your cues from Stephen Hunter. This dude, go ahead.
I heard some dude in the Twitter space yesterday saying that Stephen was the resident scholar. I was like, huh?
A resident scholar of what?
I have no idea. Twitter space.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Stephen is funny. He said, what you said, Josh?
Is this any better now?
You funny.
It sounds the same to us, but everybody is in the chat saying they can hear you. So just go in. You was going to finish that point, Ali?
Nah, that's cool. Let's get to it.
All right, because the point, I guess the first part was saying that their definition of first generation, the American
and then Josh be speaking all soft and shit too. That's another thing. Your voice start getting relaxed and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. You start disappearing.
Josh be resting, going in.
Yeah, so it was saying that, so it says that will mean someone from a family of doctors will qualify as first gen, I said, laughing. It's true though, while the ABA hasn't adopted official policy, its website says that generally speaking, the first generation law student attorney is an individual who does not have an immediate family member in the legal profession. This story didn't surprise Rationale Jahangir, or whatever, a professor at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, whose research focuses on first-gen students. Jahangir recalled attending a meeting at a graduate school where the facilitator identified first-gen students by asking them to raise a hand if their parents hadn't gone to graduate school. I was like, what? That's going to be 90% of the people here, she said. See, here we go, right here. Pressure to expand the definition of first generation pervades higher education, Jahangir told me, noting that some schools now include students whose parents completed a 4-year degree at an institution outside the U.S. as first gen. A recent study found that as many as 77% of potential college students satisfy the term's broadest definition. I'm just going to say Professor J. Professor J limits this expansion. If we define the term so broadly, we're going to miss what I and others have centered in our work, which is race and social class. But Professor J reports that she meets resistance from colleagues when she fights against the trend. They say, we don't want to disinclude anybody. Ain't that something? Y'all still there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Just listening in. It is something.
So if it's, I mean, my thing is like, you don't want to disinclude anybody, but isn't this thing supposed to be about, like, what is the purpose of diversity if you're not going to disinclude? Like, the whole point is you have to include somebody to the detriment of not including somebody. That's the whole point of this thing.
That's right.
Now, there's a reason for doing that. We're going to get into it. So it says, I relate this story because it helps explain affirmative action's impending demise at the Supreme Court in a pair of cases brought by Students for Fair Admissions, a group representing a handful of Asian American applicants, against Harvard and the University of North Carolina. Though superficially benevolent, the creeping expansion of disadvantage can be nefarious in its effect, nowhere more so than in the case of affirmative action. Originally intended to compensate Black Americans for historical discrimination, affirmative action instead came to be justified under a mantra of diversity, effectively co-opting its benefits for white people. This shift originated nearly 50 years ago as a reasonable political and legal strategic choice. But elite colleges and universities, which I have criticized in my book and elsewhere as drivers of social inequality, made a conscious, self-serving choice to maintain an absolute focus on diversity and inclusion rather than the more difficult topics of race and exclusion. I don't want to narrate too much or give too, like, takes in between this stuff, because every time when I was doing that earlier, I was like, oh yeah, they already covered that. They going right into that. So I'm gonna keep going. It says, and a strategy that may have worked at the Supreme Court.
Wait, Josh. Wait,
ahead,
I'm not gonna let that one fly over people's heads. So when we were on earlier, and Josh was reading it, because Ali had read it in full. I was the only one that hadn't read it until that point. And Josh was making conclusion. Well, I don't know if it was conclusions necessary. Yeah, I guess conclusions work that were being made further on in the article. So Ali kept saying, just keep reading, Josh, you're going to see that. Just keep reading, Josh, you're going to see that too. Keep reading, because that's in there as well. Just to let people know that we know what we're talking about. We know what we're talking about. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes the best BTP programs would be just if somebody could just hop on the phone and listen to us talk.
That's a fact. That is a fact.
Matter of fact, that's why we started BTP. We started it just because of that. Yo, I wish people could hear our conversations. And then we like, well, let's just put it on YouTube. Let's just get on and start going in, Anyway. And a strategy that may have worked at the Supreme Court back then almost certainly won't work today. The bottom line is that elite institutions' collective refusal to reckon with their racist conduct has left affirmative action on a rickety constitutional foundation that will ensure its doom. and it didn't have to be this way. And I want to say something, even though, there was racial discrimination in the past, and we can recognize that, understand that that doesn't necessarily mean that we can do racial discrimination to fix the past discrimination in the future. But we do have to do, you do have to do some type of discrimination based on something that's outside of that to get to do your remedy. Anyway, um, so it says the diversity compromise. Man, this stuff was eye opening, because I think the part that a lot of people that have not really read the ruling, they just are reacting to the premise of what everybody thinks was the ruling, and they are just trying to reconcile the past history of civil rights accomplishments, what they think of civil rights accomplishments and progressive policy that may have helped us to a certain extent against today, what they feel like is a rollback against that. And we know there's that's been going across the country. But that you can't paint with a broad brush, right? You actually have to read and understand nuance, and it starts with understanding the origins of things. So you want to understand the origins of how we got. I don't think most people, and I really didn't have the strongest grasp of how we got to diversity, and as far as affirmative action goes. And so that's what this is going to get into. It says the term affirmative action first appeared in a 1963 executive order signed by President John F. Kennedy, establishing the Committee on Equal Employment Opportunities, to be chaired by Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson. Conceived by the committee's special counsel, Hobart Taylor Jr., the phrase originally connoted aggressive, forward-looking efforts to combat racism, as in, quote, by affirmative action, the elimination of discrimination. After becoming president, Johnson transformed its meaning to compensation for past injustices during a 1965 commencement speech at Howard University. Quote, you do not take a person, I'm gonna get on my accent, I do that sometimes.
You funny, John.
You do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains, Johnson said, and liberate him, bring him up to the starting line of a race, and then say, you are free to compete with all the others, and still justly believe that you have been completely fair. Martin Luther King sounded a similar note during a now infamous Playboy interview, in which he promoted massive government spending to create jobs and educational opportunities for Black youth. Asked by Alex Haley about the fairness of preferential programs, King replied, all of America's wealth today could not adequately compensate its Negroes for his centuries of exploitation and humiliation. Yeah, did y'all want to comment on any of that so far? Because, I want to say, as far as the Johnson piece, it was interesting that how it was first presented, it was like, okay, we're going to end discrimination. And then how Johnson presented it is like, okay, no, we not only that, we need to do reparations. We need to compensate for past injustices, right? So, I mean, I thought that's key in 1965. Why is the president talking about compensate for past injustices? And we move forward and you don't see that. Well, we know what happens, but did y'all want to speak to that any, or do you want me to just keep moving?
No, I'm good on it.
All right, cool.
Yeah, me too.
During the late 1960s, many colleges and professional schools began giving Black students special considerations in admissions. Arguably, this was little more than a curtailment of the college's discrimination against applicants of color, but many schools conceptualize it as partial reparations for the legacy of racism. Ain't that something? We're going to be a little bit less racist, and that reduced racism is your reparations. That's some balls to say that, to do that. The first affirmative action case reached the Supreme Court in 1974 in a challenge from Marco De Funes, a white applicant denied admission to the University of Washington Law School. In a friend of the court brief filed on Harvard's behalf, former Watergate special prosecutor and Harvard professor Archibald Cox argued that affirmative action was justified by, quote, the direct or indirect consequences of slavery, white supremacy, and other historic prejudices leading to the poverty and isolation of disadvantaged groups. I mean, it's interesting how they just don't say freedmen on there or black, Negro, whatever. They say disadvantaged because that was the only group that had, experienced the consequences of slavery, really, that paid the price for that. Anyway, the court was experiencing a backlash to many of its civil rights decisions, particularly in the area of busing. And Cox questioned whether a majority of the justices would support the proposition that black people deserve preferential treatment or reparations for America's centuries of slavery and discrimination. So Cox articulated an alternative justification for affirmative action: diversity. See, so this is the origins of diversity. It was a quote stimulus to the development of every student's personality and understanding, as well as a preparation for the society in which he will live. End quote. He wrote in the DeFunis brief, quote, a farm boy from Ohio can bring something to Harvard College that a Bostonian cannot offer. Similarly, a black student can usually bring something that a white person can't offer. So it's like, all right, we gonna fit y'all in on the back end. We're gonna try to slide y'all in with this diversity thing, and that's how we gonna get through. Not too much different than the Civil Rights Act. We're gonna get to that later. The Supreme Court found DeFunis' challenge moot, but returned to the issue in 1977. Cox, now representing the University of California system against Alan, was this Bakke or Bach? Bakke, whatever.
I think
I
it's
pronounced it Baki.
Okay. I thought I heard somebody pronounce it different, but it's whatever. I'm gonna say Bakke, so we all gonna be on the same page. Bakke. Bakke's challenge to quotas at the UC Davis Medical School chose to emphasize the diversity argument above all else. That was despite the school's meager record in that regard. Its inaugural 1968 class had included no Black, Latino, or Native American students. Cox was making a deliberate calculation that the diversity argument was most likely to win a majority of the right-leaning court. He particularly had in mind the swing justice Lewis Powell, who presided over Richmond's school board during the era of near segregation and in the 1970 speech inveighed against, quote, the guilt-ridden views of those who talk about reparations for past injustice, end quote. So, Cox's judgment was proven right in the literal sense. Powell cast a decisive vote in a splintered 5-4 decision, premising his position on a vague notion of academic freedom and the educational benefits of diversity. Man, so basically they say, look, man, we're not even going to try to touch on this reparations stuff. There's white backlash that's happening, and that's not going to get nothing moving. So, we can just have to fold black folks into, which majority of black folks was freedmen at that time, fold them into diversity. That's how we're going to slide it through. But here's the problems with diversity. Following Bakke, colleges proceeded as if diversity was the sole permissible justification for affirmative action. Check that. In 2017, only 352 of America's approximately 6,000 colleges and universities said they considered race as a factor in admissions. All of their affirmative action programs were premised on the supposed benefits of diversity. Colleges may have perceived this approach as politically expedient in a country that still struggles with race, but as an intellectual foundation, it could hardly have been shakier. After all, diversity is in the eyes of the beholder. Last October, during oral argument in the North Carolina case, Justice Clarence Thomas said, quote, I don't have a clue what it means. This seems fair enough. Universities are clearly interested in racial diversity, but there's hardly any objective definition of race, and colleges use wildly different terminology. It's highly doubtful that colleges have made a serious commitment to political or ideological diversity, which would greatly enrich classroom discussions. And no one could believe they're serious about socioeconomic diversity. At 38 American colleges, more students come from the top 1% of the income distribution than the bottom 60%. Wow. Wow. What y'all jump in at any time, because
Yeah, that's crazy, Josh. Read that one more time. Read those percentages one more
it
time.
says it's highly doubtful that colleges have made a serious commitment to political or ideological diversity, which would greatly enrich classroom discussions. And no one could believe they're serious about socioeconomic diversity. At 38 American colleges, more students come from the top 1% of the income distribution than at the bottom 60%. So basically,
Wow.
there's certain colleges that pretty much everybody going there is elite. So why are they talking about diversity?
That's right.
We'll get to that a little bit later, and some more statistics that they show. It's really eye-opening. So it says whether diversity is beneficial depends on the question one asks. Diversity groups make better decisions than homogeneous ones. Excuse me. But we don't normally think of college students as a deliberative body. There's good data showing that exposure to diversity improves racial attitudes. But if one drills down on the educational benefits in the strictest sense, do students in diverse groups learn math better? The answer is more doubtful. Likely, this uncertainty informs the 74% of respondents to a recent Pew poll who said that race shouldn't be considered in college admissions. Deep down, quote, this is John McWhorter wrote in the New York Times, I suspect we all know that it'll be quite possible for students to get a sterling education at a university where every student was white or was a white person from Colorado. I don't know about all that, but I don't quite know how to process that. But anyway, given the historical context, if educational benefits of diversity exist, they must principally have been for white people. Ain't that what we said? Like this affirmative action stuff, the majority of the benefits have been going to white folks, in particular white women. So it says in 1972, after DeFunis initiated his lawsuit, just 4% of Harvard students identified as Black. When Bakke reached the court, the number had increased to 8%. If students indeed learn math better in racially diverse environments, those benefits could not have been about helping Black students since they were largely absent from the classroom.
But
go ahead.
Hold on. That's a powerful statement there. Because let's go back to what he said. But if one drills down on the educational benefits in the strictest sense, do students in diverse programs learn math better? The answer is more doubtful. So basically, if you have, what was that statistic that spoke about, let me see, hold on. Okay. It says at 38 American colleges, more students come from the top 1% of the income distribution than the bottom 60%. So now we're questioning this diversity thing, right? Or to use the court term, this diversity rationale. And it doesn't make sense. And so he's asking the question, do students in diverse groups learn math better? He's going to break down what diversity looks like in the college and as we keep on reading, but I just wanted to highlight that fact that, if it was only 8% of Black students at the time, and he says if students indeed learned math better in racially diverse environments, those benefits could not have been about helping Black students since they were largely absent from the classroom. That means that diversity did not affect us anyway. So how would you know if we learned the math better if you don't have a good enough sample size to even sample? You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to touch on that because I thought that was a very, very important part of this breakdown. My bad. Go ahead, bro.
Nah, definitely great insight on that. Here lies the essence of the problem with the diversity rationale. It justifies affirmative action in terms of its benefits for white people. That's the key point right there. Why is it that you need to talk about the benefits for people, a class that already has been given advantage and had full rights of citizenship that they've been able to experience, and been given racial preference for generations advantage over top of the freedmen, but you need to justify reparative policy for the freedmen on how it's not going to benefit the freedmen, but how it's going to benefit the people who have been getting, unfair access and benefits that to the freedmen's lack of access to, or they've been the beneficiaries of generations of discrimination and slavery, etc. That doesn't make sense. So anyways, it says the Clinton era defenses of affirmative action were so much about the corporation loves it, the army loves it, says David Rodiger, a professor of American Studies and History at the University of Kansas. In 2003, when Justice Sandra Day O'Connor cast a decisive vote in Grutter versus Bollinger, upholding the University of Michigan Law School's admissions policy, the briefs widely credited with persuading her came not from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, but rather from military leaders and executives at Coca-Cola, Texaco, and General Motors. At a rally outside the Supreme Court, while the justices heard the arguments on Students for Fair Admissions appeals, one of the signs says diversity is good for white people. Indeed, no group has benefited more from university preferences than white people. Almost every elite college gives significant legs up to athletes and the children of alumni, donors, and faculty, known collectively as ALDCs. See, I mean, I guess I knew that, but we don't. Most of our people are not like we might be for my generation anyway. I don't know. It's first, second, whatever generation of college graduates anyway. Most of the people I went to school with, and I'm talking to them, they first and second generation. That means they were the first people in their line, that they know of that went to college. Their mother didn't go to college, their father didn't go to college. Certainly their grandparents didn't go to college, etc. For me, my mama went to college, my daddy went to college, my grandma, one of my grandmas went to college, and that was it. So, anyways, it says according to the data produced in SFFA's lawsuit, Harvard admitted 34% of legacy applicants and 86% of recruited athletes, compared to an overall admissions rate of 4.6%. About 43% of white students at Harvard are an ALDC. That means they're athlete or they're children of an alumni. That means their parents or somebody went, and then or they don't made a big donation, or they work there. So, that's 43% of white students. Half.
That's right. So that means that affirmative action obviously wasn't working for us anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Serwer wasn't working for us.
And the diversity rationale celebrates their contributions, right? Peep this. The diversity rationale celebrates their contributions. Under this approach, the white lacrosse player, third generation Harvardian, and billionaire's child each enriches the classroom with their perspective. I mean, how can you argue against that, right? I mean, those are different experiences. You talk about diversity, we need not be specific.
I want
to go to college and talk to a billionaire child. I mean, that's
diverse. That's a diverse conversation, right? The lacrosse player, the third generation Harvardian, and the billionaire's child. Just it's three different types of diversity, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But that's their rationale. But I mean, how can you argue against that? But my thing is, how is that reparative? And ain't that what affirmative action is supposed to be about? Repairing the freedmen. Anyway, at oral arguments this past October, several justices probed the hypocrisy in Harvard's position. The university could have curtailed ALDC preferences, thereby creating additional opportunity for students of all colors. Harvard said doing so would jeopardize crucial institutional interests. Okay, yeah. Oh, okay. What's up, Freedman? Uh, Further undermining Harvard's position is the fact that little of the benefit of its affirmative action program has gone to the students with the greatest ethical claim. Reasonable minds could differ on precisely who this is. Presumably, the conversation will begin with the descendants of slavery. Now, we know this is erroneous because that would also include that 43% up there, many of them. But what he means is American freedmen, indigenous North
Exactly.
Americans, and other casualties of colonialism. Also, the victims of segregatory residential practices, which many elite colleges encourage, and which have kept families of color, here we go, from accumulating the reservoirs of wealth that help families meet the cost of tuition and weather the crises that lead less advantaged students to drop out. Precious little of affirmative action's benefits has gone to these groups. Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, even sometimes when people write these articles, they don't know the right language to use. So it's our job when we read it to interpret it in the right language, because we got the right language. That's why we, knew which language to send to the Supreme Court, etc. Anyway, and so what he's talking about is a freedman. Other groups and all this, he's talking about the freedmen. That's basically the only group that was enslaved, because that's why we call American freedmen, because there were no other Americans who were emancipated. In 2003, Harvard professors Lonnie Guinier and Henry Louis Gates observed that only about a third of the college's Black undergraduates came from families in which all four grandparents had been born in the U.S. They estimated that 2/3 were either children of biracial couples or recent immigrants from Africa or the Caribbean. A subsequent study confirmed their intuition, while nationally, about 10% of Black Americans who are first or second generation immigrants at Ivy League colleges, the figure exceeds 40%. Let me read that again. While nationally, about 10% of Black Americans are first or second generation immigrants at Ivy League colleges, the figure exceeds 40%. Wow. See, we already knew that because the Pew Research data told us that, first, second gen immigrants is 10%. Actually, I think more recently, they said when you include the children or whatever, it's like, I don't know, close to 18% or something like that. I don't know. But when you look at Ivy League colleges, they get to 40%. So we already know about that, but let's keep reading. More recently, when a group of Harvard students attempted to construct a community of, quote, generational African Americans, they're talking about American freedmen, the descendants of slavery, they're talking about American freedmen, they found few potential members. A teaching fellow in Introduction to African American Studies estimated that GAA students constituted just 10% of Harvard's Black population, about 17 students per graduating class. So let me flip it around. They're saying 90% of the Black Harvard population is not a freedman. 90% of the Black Harvard population is non-freedmen. And then they get into reparations. Reparations reconsider. If slavery is America's original sin, the original sin of affirmative action is decoupling from racism. This is often portrayed as the inevitable consequence of the constitutional history, but the Supreme Court never turned its back on the remedial justification for affirmative action. Universities did. See, man, y'all bros, what y'all got to say on that?
Well, the court got it right. The court got it right in many aspects, because if you look at the affirmative action case, again, I said it earlier, it's not that it's dead. It's just that the focus has been put back on the people that it was intended for. And so now you can't use race as the standard. Now you have to use your status as a freedman in this country. And this is what was being made clear by Justice Thomas in this case. So for the people that say, oh, Thomas, he ain't do nothing. You don't know what you talk about, because we read it. And we are reading corroborating information that agrees with our position. So, I mean, I don't know where else to go with that one, but they got it right and we got it right.
And let me say, this is not about confirmation bias. I just want people to understand that. Yeah, this particular article corroborates, but you got to understand, this is dealing with actual data and the facts and the history of the benign neglect policies being practiced against our people. So it's not like, look, y'all guys are dealing in nope, this is not confirmation bias. There's an article that you often hear Naheem cite from, diversity, when diversity for diversity's sake. What is the rest? How does the title go?
When diversity for diversity's sake is not enough, I believe it is. How affirmative action benefits Black immigrants to the detriment of Native Black Americans.
So exactly, and so the fact of the matter is, we're dealing with these reports that have been done based on the research of these particular this person, right? This article is from John Jay Criminal School, right? The College of Criminal Justice, and even you had Henry Louis Gates and Lanny Guinier talking about this. So the fact of the matter is, this is what's been going on. This policy of affirmative action has not been benefiting the freedmen families for whom it was enacted in the first place. That's why what they did was narrow the scope of who it's supposed to be for. But see, like I said, this is a gift horse, and people often stare gift horses in the mouth because they don't really either they don't understand or they don't value what it is that they're actually looking at. And so that's what we're unfortunately dealing with. People who either don't know or just don't value it because they prefer to do all kinds of minority and race-based and people of color type of politics.
Black reparations.
It's some people, we got to understand that everybody doesn't feel about reparations like you feel about it. But they understand that they don't want to look like a traitor or, somebody that is out of touch or whatever. And it's really because they never had to think about it. They've kind of detached themselves from, the whole community. They detached themselves. They kind of been living outside of what we would consider like the consequences of the badges of incidents of slavery. And they think some of these people may not even feel that they need to get reparations. Like, why should I get reparations? I'm already doing good, But I think they
sign the waiver and shut up.
That's it. Just sign the waiver, because the waiver will be a part of this reparations package.
But even
it will be.
How I break it down is, how many freedmen billionaires are there in America? And then how many non-freedmen billionaires are there in America? Is that anywhere close to our population? I break it down like, go ahead.
One billionaire, one white billionaire has, like, you could pick one out of a hat, has more wealth, has more billions than every freedman billionaire combined. Just one of them.
I'll take.
Then we could probably count about another couple hundred of them after that one.
One white billionaire has a net worth. That means you subtract all his debts and everything, has a net worth bigger than all freedmen business in America combined. Matter of fact, even if you put and aggregate all Black business, including immigrants, he has more wealth than all Black business combined in America.
And that would include Tyler Perry's business. That would include Jay-Z's business. That would include Oprah Winfrey's business. It would include all of those people's businesses that we think are the shit, right? These, Michael Jordan is the shit. Look at what he got going on. LeBron James is the shit, right? No, but this one guy has more wealth than all of them plus everybody else that's called a black-owned business in this country.
Right. And then as you get to a lesser scale, it's far more in the billionaire category. It's far more in the 100 millionaire. We only think about billionaires. We don't even think about people that worth hundreds of millions and then tens of millions, and then we get to millions, right? But when you look at it from our perspective, if we would have had impartiality, we didn't even say in reparations. We just talked about impartiality. That means you did not do terrorism, you did not do discrimination, and you did not do peonage, and you did not do mass incarceration today. You didn't do all of these things that we never got justice for. Where would you, even though you're doing good, you might I know some people making hundreds of thousands or making $1 million here, but if your family, if your people overcame the odds to create the situation where you were able to do that, what do you think you would be? Where do you think you would be if we had impartiality? You might be a part of that billionaire class. But see, so the fact that we didn't have impartiality and that was not the fate of your lineage, then that means that represents a crime and an injustice that was done upon your family, and that also happened to a bunch of other families. And what about the families that these injustices cause devastation and death for? Destruction, generational, what people call generational curses, was really, a lot of that was due to, it wasn't some divine curse. It was the curse of living under a Confederate government that was masquerading as an American government, or a government that had a constitution that where your rights are supposed to be protected in that constitution, but you was getting unconstitutional treatment in the country, even going back to slavery. We're not gonna get into that. We're gonna keep moving forward.
I want to read this part, Josh.
Go ahead.
I want to read
I'm right here.
this.
Go ahead.
Huh?
No, I'm
Where
just
you
letting
at?
you know where I'm right here, where it says even the stoop. But go ahead.
Okay. Yep. All right. But I want to go back. I want to go back a sentence. Matter of fact, I want to start from. Let me just start. If slavery is America's original sin, the original sin of affirmative action is its decoupling from racism. This is often portrayed as the inevitable consequence of the constitutional history, but the Supreme Court never turned its back on the remedial justification for affirmative action. Universities did. Even astute court observers get this wrong. And Baki, Powell said that UC Davis had failed to offer evidence of historical discrimination, which is quite different than saying such evidence didn't exist. The Supreme Court never said that affirmative action couldn't be justified as reparations. There's just so much to unpack right there, but we could go back. It's this next part that I really want to read, and I'm gonna let you finish going back over.
I enjoy listening to you read. Go ahead, brother.
But you got the breakdowns because you ready, and you got the breakdown. Your breakdowns is better than mine. It says, in fact, at least one key member of the Supreme Court has signaled that the reparations argument is still on the table. I want to pause there. Let us pause right here for a minute. When we first did our live stream, that same day that this ruling came out, and we broke it down to the people, one of the things that we explained was that this case opened up the door for reparative justice in a way that it would survive strict scrutiny in the court. In fact, if we go the route of just using the freedman status, then what's the lowest form of scrutiny? Rationale scrutiny? Then that's where it's going to go. It's going to go there. I don't think it even broaches the strict scrutiny topic, but that's me guessing. because you never know what the Supreme Court will do, as the brother says in this article. But I want to start that paragraph over. In fact, at least one key member of the Supreme Court has signaled that the reparations argument is still on the table.
Who was that?
Thomas. That's who. That's who, Josh. Thomas, the Supreme Court's most ardent opponent on affirmative action, acknowledged that the reparations justification remained viable in a 2003 opinion concerning admissions policies at University of Texas, Austin. We got homework to do now, fam. We got homework to do. He acknowledged that the reparations see, you got to think, if reparations is justified for a case for affirmative action in places of education, then reparations is justified everywhere for everything that has ailed us as a people.
Because it doesn't say college admissions. It doesn't say.
That's right.
Affirmative action is just one of the forms that you can try to do reparative work. But this says
that's right.
This is talking about providing remedy for past discrimination.
And he says that the court, and this is echoed in last week's ruling. The court, Thomas wrote, has recognized that the government has a compelling interest in remedying past discrimination for which it is responsible. If you don't see that as a useful tool in the fight for reparative justice, because you want to focus on some liberal Democrat argument that upholds the people of color, the BIPOC. Oh, no. It's the new term now. DEI, what is it? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Then you are not about reparations. You're not about reparations. We are no Clarence Thomas apologists over here. We have problems with some of the things that he has said in the past. You know, that word coon gets thrown around out there, and you know, we can point to some things and say, yep, definitely. But when it comes to this, we are not emotionally invested. We see it for what it is. Those other people. Go ahead, bro.
I just want to say, because people, a lot of times people that are not really, you haven't read and you haven't really studied Supreme Court, and you don't understand certain words you read, you're like, okay, that's an interesting word. I wonder why they use that. Look that word up. Look that word up in the law dictionary. Look that word up and look up the context of that in terms of the Supreme Court. When you see something, the government, because when we see certain things, we know exactly what's being talked about. When you see compelling governmental interest, that's part one of the strict scrutiny test. So he's telling you, basically, he's making it in a way that it's like when you read certain legal terms, what you're essentially reading, you translate it into, look, I'm telling you that this will not be struck down. This will actually pass the strict scrutiny test, so you can get reparations through. So the only part of it is it has to be narrowly tailored, and that's where the freedmen part comes in. And he didn't mention nothing about freedmen in 2003, but 2023, after United Sons,
that's right.
Freedmen got the term popping.
That's right. I'm just saying, Josh. I'm just saying, Josh. He ain't mentioned freedmen in 2003. I'm just saying. And
not just United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen.
Of course, not just
shout out to all the freedmen family
across
the country.
That's right.
Who is smart enough to read and learn in this thing for themselves, and because a lot of people have taken this thing up and really putting the gas on this, and that's how you have a 2023 where you didn't hear anything about freedmen before in any of these cases back in 2003. The freedmen element was the narrowly tailored. piece that really solidifies us passing the strict scrutiny test. So let's move forward.
All right, I'm gonna just read down past Feingold's part, and then you could go finish after that. I just want to read. I want to read these next two. When Justice Sonia Sotomayor questioned SFFA's lead lawyer Patrick Strawbridge about Reconstruction initiatives aimed at getting Black children educated in integrated schools, Strawbridge called the Freedmen's Bureau's efforts, quote, entirely consistent with this court's existing strict scrutiny rationale, even in the educational context, that remediation is an acceptable, compelling interest. And he was right. I mean, we gotta, that's so much. We gotta attack that guy, bro.
Now, when you take that with the oral argument, when Kavanaugh said, so what you're saying is special benefits given to descendants of slaves were not race-based, and therefore were
not descendants of slavery, yes. Descendants of slaves.
Yes,
that's right.
Because the other article that was put out a couple weeks ago outlined that was called Descendants of Slavery, outlined all the slaveholding Congress people, white slaveholding Congress people that were also descendants of slavery. So you got to be more specific. The actual people who had the status of slave, not that people that of slavery included people who had the status of slave and slave master, slaveholder, etc. So we're talking about the people who had the status of slave that achieved the status of freedmen. So he said special benefits given to them were not race-based, and the I think it might have been Strawbridge or it might have been another guy agreed. And then he said, okay, so special benefits given to their descendants is also race-based. And that's when the dude got jammed up because he didn't want
that's right. He didn't want to acknowledge that.
He didn't have any rational retort for that. And Kavanaugh pressed him on it. Kavanaugh was right. So when you bring that here, basically what we get to is even Kavanaugh is an agreement that in education, in the educational context, that you can do affirmative action for freedom. So that's just proving the point that Brother Ali said earlier. Affirmative action isn't dead. It's just been relegated, or it's preserved to only be applicable if you want to do it for freedmen, if you want to pass the strict scrutiny test. Go ahead, Brother Naheem.
Indeed. The fact that dude said even in the educational context, right? Like this thing has its layers, and it's our job as freedmen reparationists to start unpacking these layers. That remediation is an acceptable, compelling interest. Remediation is reparations. That's what remediation means.
Because it has a remedy at the
That's right.
Remedy is the root. That's right.
That's right. Boston University School of Law professor Jonathan Feingold, who has written extensively about affirmative action, wasn't surprised, telling me the remedial justification has, quote, a stronger constitutional mooring than the diversity rationale. See, they was never supposed to use the diversity rationale in the first place. They feared white backlash, and they did not do what was right. And we spoke about this earlier in the Supreme, they were Supreme Court cases. Let me see, where are they? What did I do with them? Here it goes. And y'all I might cut out. I don't want to cut out, but there was two Supreme Court cases, Katzenbach versus McClung and Heart of Atlanta Motel versus the United States. So let me break down what they did. I want to show what they did real quick. It says, in 1964, the Supreme Court of the United States rendered two landmark decisions in connections with civil rights under the Commerce Clause. It says, in these decisions, the court held that Congress was within its commerce power in prohibiting discrimination in restaurants and motels, which had a substantial effect on interstate commerce. Can y'all still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It says, in Katzenbach, the court held the restaurant could not discriminate on the basis of race because a substantial portion of the food served in the restaurant had moved through interstate commerce. Similarly, in Heart of Atlanta, the court held that the motel could not discriminate on the basis of race because the majority of the motel's patrons were traveling from out of state, and thus this would affect interstate commerce. So what we have here is, instead of the courts using the equal protection clause of the 14th Amendment, they chose to use the commerce clause. Look up, I think that's the Robert Byrd, what is it? The Robert Byrd case. The Robert Byrd Act. Look up the justification that they're using under the 14th Amendment. Instead of using and matter of fact, instead of going to the 13th Amendment, because they never defined what badges and incidents of slavery were and are, it leaves this void. And so now when you're dealing with the 14th Amendment, you can't rely on the 13th Amendment. And if you can't rely on the 13th Amendment, then you can't do equal protection, or you can't do these acts under equal protection. You now have to do them under the same type of rationale that the colleges did affirmative action with. We're going to use something else. We're just going to use diversity, and that way there's no backlash. I hope that made sense to the people. But the fact that they use the commerce clause in these cases and not use the privileges and immunities that were being violated of these American citizens, and they justified that by saying, well, you can't do that because this is affecting interstate commerce, and because these Negroes came from out of state and tried to get a hotel room, and y'all didn't let them get the hotel room, that was in violation of the Commerce Clause. No, that's a violation of their privileges and immunities, one, and it's also that discrimination is also an extension of the badges and incidents as a result of slavery. It's as simple as that, fam. You can take it away from here, Josh.
Yeah. Man, powerful point. Boston University School of Law professor Jonathan Feingold, who has written extensively about affirmative action, wasn't surprised, telling me the remedial justification has a quote stronger constitutional mooring than the diversity rationale. Yeah, we know about that.
Ain't that something?
Yet, neither Harvard nor North Carolina asserted a remedial justification for their respective affirmative action programs. When Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson questioned UNC's attorney, Ryan Y. Park, about the relevance of UNC's history of racial exclusion, Park replied, quote, "We're not pursuing any sort of remedial justification for our policy." David Hinojosa, representing a group of students who interviewed in the UNC case, similarly told Sotomayor, "We're not suggesting, as I understand the university is not either, that the limited consideration of race in this case is being used as a remedial order." It's tempting to attribute this strategy to the oddities of constitutional litigation. The Supreme Court only rules on the case before. Consequently, affected parties are loath to experiment. They often treat a statute or a plan that has survived a challenge as the only permissible system instead of merely one that the court has authorized. Let me back up here, because we got to see this. You notice that, so they're trying to run away from, no, we're not trying to do any remedy. No, we're not trying to do any remedy. And it's twofold, right? And it goes back to what Brother Naheem was saying. It's twofold. Number one, it's going to, reparations back in the 1960s, after the Civil Rights Movement, after they killed Dr. King, and then the country's on fire. They're like, we gotta have to change some stuff up here. We have to have a different tone. We have to have a different. There's a bunch of work that was put in to build support for this policy. But then there were afterwards, after this, they killed King or whatever, and the fires and the cities were tore up, and white businesses were mad, and now there's white backlash. Oh, well, we tired of that. So we're gonna push back and we're gonna roll back and all that kind of stuff. At least we're not gonna support any additional stuff. And so you saw people try to shy away from, and that's what they talked about earlier. How do you get to diversity? That's actually happened again after 2020. Oh, it's the George Floyd stuff. Oh, now we got to push. We got to do something. And then 2021. That's like, no, Asian hate crime bill. Forget y'all Negroes, and we roll it back. We're not trying to do the black stuff no more. And so you see stuff like, we're not pursuing any remedial. So that's number one, is that they don't want to be a part of something that's going to be not popular. But the second thing is, they know if you try to make it remedial, what do you remedy somebody who just got over here for? What did they experience that they need remedy for from the United States? When you get into remedial, then you have to get into the freedmen, because it was the damage against the freedmen is the only people that really has any justification in getting remedy. All right, so I had to make that point. So it says, one also has good reason to be skeptical that the remedial argument will carry the day under this iteration of the Roberts Court. All right. In 1986, the Supreme Court reaffirmed the theoretical viability of the remedial justification in a case concerning a Richmond, Virginia minority set-aside program, but deemed a significant evidentiary showing of past discrimination inadequate to justify the city's affirmative action program. It's entirely possible that nothing could have persuaded today's aggressive conservative supermajority to preserve affirmative action. And I believe that's true. I mean, I'm thinking the brothers on here agree that we're not saying necessarily that, if we move forward now and push this and push reparations gets passed tomorrow, and then somebody white says, I'm a freedman too, and you want to challenge this thing, and then the Supreme Court's gonna strike it down. I'm not saying that won't happen, because what originalism, what happens a lot of times with originalism, and study the term originalism, just go and study it, like originalism in the Supreme Court. What you see is this, it's mostly a conservative position that you try to interpret things based on the original intent. But the problem with that is when people just use the power that they have in the numbers to exert their will and whatever their political leaning or whatever their preference is, so they can get the desired outcome, and they just try to use originalism to back it up. And when that originalism doesn't support their position, they abandon it with no shame and being hypocritical. So I don't believe that they would do anything different in this case, but I do think that whatever the case may be, we got a favorable ruling. And I'm talking about American freedmen got a favorable ruling in rolling out the red carpet for reparations and other reparative policy that would pass if challenged in the Supreme Court. So, but Harvard and UNC couldn't have been worse off by pursuing this path as well. Moreover, the remedial justification would have done important work in the court of public opinion, particularly as the country goes through racial reckoning. Quote, part of the moment we're in now is asking why racial disparities exist, Feingold says. Harvard and UNC effectively dodged the possibility that racial disparities exist in their respective institutions because there are racial advantages that continue to flow to white applicants, and often wealthy white applicants. Hey, look, I know Ali and Brother Naheem, I want y'all to jump in, but we got to understand that even on the Supreme Court, right? Half of the Supreme Court justices went to Harvard Law, and the rest of them went to Yale, and I think one is Notre Dame, and I can't remember, maybe one, I can't remember the other one, but yeah, that like Supreme Court is one example of that. Y'all want to jump in and say something to this?
No, bro. I think we on a roll.
All right.
I think we on a roll.
Feingold offers the simplest possible explanation for why colleges have focused exclusively on diversity. Institutions, he says, don't want to have to do the potentially embarrassing, shameful uplifting of history that would actually be necessary for a remedial defense. Harvard, which benefited extensively from the labor of enslaved peoples, recently committed 100 million to support historical research by scholars and students, but notably excluded reparations or any change to admissions policy. UNC didn't desegregate
Hold
until
on, Josh.
1955. Go ahead.
That sounds like the framework of the anti-CRT folks. So whereas we don't want to acknowledge our history because we do not want to acknowledge our transgressions against this particular class of people in this country. And I mean, there's ways for us to now start drawing these correlations. I just wanted to add that part.
No doubt. UNC didn't desegregate until 1955 following a federal court order and resisted integration during the 1960s through a strategy of so-called moderation. UNC's history, man. All right, let me. UNC's history, Feingold says, is another reason why it feels, and this is maybe slight hyperbole, like a legal malpractice to leave that argument on the table when for most of your history, you were either formally excluding Black students or you were formally resisting federal mandates that you let them in. See, how in the world can they have a defense? Or how in the world can they talk about anything dealing with affirmative action, and you don't even base your defense in why so you would rather affirmative action get struck down than actually base your defense in remedy for the freedmen. How could you not bring that up? That's so. If let's
The
what
track
this dude
record.
is trying to say is, if I was your lawyer and if you were representing me and you did not bring this up because you thought it was going to be damaging to you or your firm, then that would be called legal malpractice, and you would be sued. So they would rather go down and let it burn than to have to bring up to root their defense in freedmen remedy, because then that would expose them. But go ahead, Brother Ali.
Well, I mean, it's why they lost the case. they had to take a weaker
That's
position.
right.
You know?
Mm-hmm. SFFA slippery slope. Now, this is where it gets interesting. It says some academics have placed a great hope in the idea that elite colleges can maintain current levels of racial diversity after race-based affirmative action ends by focusing on social economic disadvantage or curtailing noxious admissions policies like legacy. Don't be so sure. Under existing case law, Harvard could drop legacy preferences for the purposes of promoting racial diversity, but it's possible the courts could prohibit even that approach within the next few years. So, he said he used a lot of interesting words, whatever, but what he's trying to say is like, all right, well, what if they said, all right, we're gonna stop, we'll try to do the remedial stuff. We'll actually go back to the root of how this thing, got the steam behind getting affirmative action as a policy in the first place, and that was because of racial discrimination. So we'll try to do racial diversity. We'll try to do that, but we'll try to do it in a way that is not as direct, right? But then they're saying that could be some problems with that. So it says the cautionary tale comes from Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Fairfax County, Virginia, widely ranked among the nation's top public high schools. Yeah, I know about that, down the street. Until 2020, TJ, as it's known, based admissions on a combination of grades, standardized tests, recommendations, and essays. That fall, responding to a state mandate to increase diversity, the school board implemented a new holistic policy which considered economic disadvantage, reserved seats for students from each of the region's middle schools, and capped the number of students from any one district. The sort of measures many experts promote as the best hope for maintaining diversity after race-based affirmative action ends. So they're trying to say, how can we hedge? How can we do like what to get the desired result of remedy, where freedmen can get a disproportionate benefit, and not just be overrun and dominated by agents who and white folks who are in a better economic position. And the situation is what it says here is a coalition of parents represented by the right-leaning Pacific Legal Foundation sued, claiming that the new policy aimed to reduce the representation of Asian American students. Federal District Court Judge Claude Hilton, a Reagan appointee, blocked the policy. The Fourth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals stayed the injunction while it considered the merits of the appeal. It reversed the district court ruling in May. But it's what happened next. So basically it's saying that they let TJ go through with what they wanted to do. And it says, but it's what's happened next that is particularly notable. The Pacific Legal Foundation sought its own emergency stay from the U.S. Supreme Court. Granting such a motion is rare, and the court indeed denied it. But Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch supported the extraordinary measure. So what they're trying to say is, yeah, even if you try to do this thing in a way where it's you work around and you don't say freedmen and you don't say you're trying to remedy past discrimination, what you're trying to do is you're trying to do diversity by, you want to get economic diversity, you want to get regional diversity, you want to get all this kind of diversity. Still, you're going to get Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch is going to shut you down because that does not meet a compelling interest. That does not meet the compelling government. I'm speaking for them. I didn't read why they supported it. Maybe we can bring that up. But based on how they ruled in this other, I don't even want to look at that courthouse, man. I don't even want to look at it. Let me scroll back up. Based on how they ruled right here, basically how they rule in the Supreme Court case dealing with the affirmative action with Harvard and UNC. What they're saying is that probably wouldn't pass a strict scrutiny test, and that it does not serve a compelling interest. What they see as a compelling interest, and it's because they did not root it in remedying past discrimination. See, you gotta say freedmen. You gotta come out and say freedmen.
That's right. See, and that's what the justices did, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they did. Like, they reversed this whole thing in an ill kind of way, right? You look at the George Floyd situation, and you take into account everything that you've read and how he's explaining how these universities used this diversity basis for how they would integrate their schools, if you will. And you come to the lynching of George Floyd. And what happens is the children of these diverse groups, well, they are the ones that then took over the movement. And that freedman thing wasn't invoked. That status wasn't invoked. And so that bill with George Floyd, it languishes still. It doesn't have the backing needed for it to go forward. So in that, where is, this word, remedial justice? Where is the remedial justice that stops a cop from doing that again? Okay, yeah, you could get the time, but there's nothing in place that even lets you, that makes you stop doing that. Police brutality is a thing. It is a badge of slavery, an incident. It's like one of the incidents of slavery. I guess we could say a badge and incident of slavery. That's something. So now, how are you drafting up the legislation? Then I got to go back and read it. How are you drafting this legislation up? Because Justice Thomas said that this government can remedy a race-based harm that it has inflicted, as so long as it perpetuates a colorblind constitution, okay, that's cool. Well, the government, if it turns a blind eye to these actions, this brutal terrorism of our people, well, then it's culpable. It's culpable. So how is the federal government trying to fix that? And this is where we come in at, Freedman family. So I don't want to take you too far off of the reading, but I just wanted to insert that part.
Nah, and the only thing he's saying here is basically like, look, I guess I'll read it because we didn't read the whole thing, but and it's not too much further after this. I know we've gone on long, but for those who are watching, thank you for hanging on. You're getting good Freedman education here, and we probably, hopefully, we'll get a chance to chop some of these up so it can be more chewable, and for the rest of the folks who need smaller bites. So it says Ed Bloom, a conservative legal advocate and the mastermind behind the SFFA cases, has pledged not to challenge race neutral admissions criteria, but that wouldn't preclude other organizations like Pacific Legal Foundation from arguing that they're unconstitutionally being used as proxies for race. It's the type of argument that certainly at least 3 justices are amenable to, Feingold said, and it actually creates a far more harmonious body of law because it takes colorblindness seriously. And see, that's the piece. Certain pieces are missing because they're just not a part of the consciousness of people that are writing. I mean, that that are writing these articles, and they're just getting opened up to what we have been validated in our position, and that's after the Supreme Court ruling that it's not. You can't. It's like you have to stop looking at things through the racial paradigm. That's the only lens that people know how to look through, is the racial lens instead of the status lens, in particular freedom status lens. So once you look at things through that lens, then you'll see you'll see that actually the way that these justices rule, it doesn't negate the freedom status lens. It bigs up the freedom position, So but all they know how to do is see like, okay, you're
and that's the problem, John.
Black race.
That's right.
It's not about the black race. It's about American freedmen who,
and that's the problem.
They're classified in the black race.
No, that's the problem. That's the problem coming from not just the liberals, who are mad at this decision, but that's also the problem coming from people in this reparationist space that do not want to moor themselves in this freedmanism, as they're calling it on Twitter. And those are a lot of low puns I just threw in there, and on double entendres, right? They don't want to moor them because they keep making this frivolous claim. You was a more anyway.
Yo, when I see that, I knew he was going to do that. I knew he was going to do that tonight.
So that's what it is. That's what it is.
We'll get to a place where we didn't get to yet, because I hadn't even read this far. Like, it was enough going all the way back to the top to do a whole program. And we really did a whole program. We had really in overtime, but I'm gonna continue reading since this is the last part. So it says, getting back to racism. The only thing certain is that race isn't going away in the college admissions process. In fact, we're about to see an explosion of essays by students explicating their experience of racial disadvantage. During oral arguments in the UNC case, Justice Amy Coney Barrett asked SFFA's lawyer to consider an applicant who came from, quote, an underprivileged school who maybe didn't have the best teaching, best opportunities to score well on the SAT, end quote. If such a student wrote an essay describing their experiences, quote, with socioeconomic diversity, racial prejudice, things that shape who I am, could a university consider that without offending the Equal Protection Clause? Yes, Strawbridge replied. I think this court's precedents even note that the act of overcoming discrimination is separate and apart distinction from race. Justice Alina Kagan clarified, what you are saying, what are you saying a college can look at, and what are you saying a college can't look at when they're reading an essay about, the experiences that a person has lived in their lives, has had in their lives. Being subjected to racial discrimination obviously indicates that the applicant has grit, that applicant has overcome some hardship, Strawbridge replied. It tells you something about the character and the experience of the applicant other than their skin color. This shift in focus to the experience of disadvantage and racism from race itself will lead to further co-opting of the disadvantage. It will place a premium on an applicant's ability to present a compelling narrative of their experience, a change that will favor students who have money to work with private admissions counselors. As much as I'm cynical about us ever really having an American dream, I don't envision the end of affirmative action affecting what students will write their college essays about, Jamie Berger, an educational consultant based in Massachusetts, told me. If anything, I think they'll write about race more because they can't check a box. So what they're saying is, look, man, these people are going to be determined to grift. They're going to be determined to scam and try to use whatever angle they can get, because we have not pushed the envelope in doing the work of making remedial policy or remedial focus in admissions policy. The thing we have not said, look, you need to do freedmen affirmative action separate from everybody else affirmative action. Don't even put us in the same category. And you need to have American freedmen, because that's the only remedial thing that you're dealing with. Everybody else, they didn't experience the generational harms, and they weren't, they didn't experience the disparities, and that's why you look at the numbers outside of school, and you see that we're pretty much at the bottom of all of that. But we've been here throughout all of the history when these colleges were building up. Matter of fact, we built the colleges, most of them, and especially the long-lasting legacy ones on the East Coast. And so it continues, it says, these new narratives will do further damage, inviting students to search their history for disadvantage leads or false grievances and equivalencies. The mechanism is similar to how the pressure of AP classes, standardized tests, and resume building, with Harvard professor Michael Sandel terms the gauntlet of stress, blinds students to their good fortune. Quote, the striving so absorbs us that our indebtedness recedes from view, Sandel writes. Everyone who has written in this space has the expertise of receiving an angry email from a white person, bristling at even the hint that their child didn't deserve a spot at an elite college. What if students were invited instead to write about their advantage? Anyone can find disadvantage if they look hard enough in the stresses of their high school experiences or suffering of their ancestors. Denying one's advantages is far more difficult. For most white applicants, any such list would begin with what the college admissions process defines as meritorious. For the very framing of affirmative action is intensely racist. Given the academy's liberal leanings, one would expect universities to defend affirmative action as a counter to the benefits enjoyed by affluent white students. Instead, they characterize it as a necessary departure from objective standards. Harvard told the Supreme Court that a committee found no alternative to affirmative action that will allow it to achieve the educational benefits of diversity while also maintaining its demanding standards of excellence. Nowhere did Harvard mention that students brought in as legacy and athletes underperformed their peers or the SAT scores. Doubtless one of the standards of excellence correlate more closely to wealth than college performance, or that many alternative admission systems exist that will produce a brilliant cohort of students without offering the same advantage to white people. Yeah, I mean, I'm reading that and I'm processing it at the same time, like live with y'all, and I'm gonna keep reading. It says Harvard's exclusive focus on diversity as a justification for affirmative action and the implicit co-opting of its benefits for white students sadly sealed its fate. Equally tragic is what it has done to the public's understanding of college admissions. As the language and rhetoric of diversity exploded everywhere, it altered how we implicitly think about racial disparities. In other words, When we focus on disparity, on diversity, when black folks, when the freedmen that were here, we looked at, all right, we'll get in where we fit in. You know, we can slide in through diversity because you know they got to have the technical language in there so they can they can get us in there. But you know, once we in there, then we know we gonna get we in there. We got them. We slid past. We got them. And we gonna get the majority of the benefit. Nope. Nope. The majority of the benefit is going to just who they intended for it to go to, which is white women. Everybody except for able-bodied, non-veteran, straight white man is can find a way to get preference, and the freedmen get at the bottom. Like our brother Ibrahim says, you know, if you got 20 affirmative action spots, you probably get 10 of them go to white women, 9 of them go to everybody else, and 1 of them might go to a freedman. And 9 of them, but the problem is like they might take 3, 4 of them other 9 and give it to somebody else that quote unquote black, and then they'll think that they're remedying the freedmen, and it might be 0 freedmen, you know, and that one what that was a freedman will go to somebody that's quote unquote black, but that person might have came here last week. They might not even be 1 day in America except for to go to on campus. Yeah, I don't know if I read this already. Harvard's exclusive focus on diversity as a justification of affirmative action. Oh, I already read that. Yeah, man. Well, let's wrap.
I mean, we can stop right there.
Yeah,
we can stop right there.
I'll say this right here. That's why affirmative action should have never been decoupled from racism. Not just to explain the debt elite colleges owe for their past sins, but to contextualize their racist present. Yeah, you got to talk about. Look, by not remedying the badges and incidents of slavery, you are in favor of perpetuating. One of the badges and incidents of slavery we identify is that wealth gap, but it's also all the disparities that exist because people won't take remedial action. Congress won't take remedial action to resolve these disparities and eradicate these badges and incidents of slavery. So, yeah. You know, if you're gonna do affirmative action, you gotta be in freedmanism, period. What y'all think, bros, as we wrap up? I ain't even look at the chat, so I'm gonna stop sharing. If you want to go in, if you can see the chats. My bad, chats. I'm not the one to usually host, brother. And I ain't usually at the computer. He stopped in, he see what y'all saying. I'm the only one at the computer today, so.
That's right.
Let's see if we can highlight some folks. Peace, everybody. Peace, everybody. Oh yeah, AF. What the AF stand for? American Freedmen. Yeah, that's true.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I could still highlight. I was highlighting some of the comments. I could still do that.
Oh,
so, okay. This whole thing, right? Let's go back to Kavanaugh's back and forth. In the oral argument, right? And they were Kavanaugh basically asked them, so a benefit to slaves is acceptable, basically. And the lawyer said, yeah, definitely. He said, but what about benefits to the descendants of slaves? The dude was like, no. He started tripping over him. Josh touched on that a little earlier. And the reason why that's important is because they know who we are. And we haven't really known who we are in this country because, of course, we know what happened to us in this country. But when I say they know who we are, if they are looking at, and that's the lawyers, looking at this case from the view of its constitutionality, and how that connects with what they were arguing in this affirmative action case. And the fact that Kavanaugh said that, no, this wasn't, those benefits were not race-based. They were based on the status of the freedmen. This is what Kavanaugh said. This is what he said. then we have to ask ourselves, where do we fit in that equation? And this was the rage of the debate that started yesterday. I got blocked by some people. I was cracking up, laughing about that. And then the freedmen assembled on that thread. I was seeing all the comments. And I felt good about that. I felt like how Captain America was when he was fighting Thanos at the end. And then all the people got snapped back into existence, all of the superheroes and all, and they came through. The freedmen superheroes came through on that thread. And the contention was that we weren't freedmen today, and that freedmen only applied to the newly emancipated. So what I want to do is I want to read from the definition. I don't know if you want to pull that up, Josh. Sheesh.
Which one?
I can't even put it in the inbox right now.
It should have been in the inbox from early this morning.
Yes, the link to the tweets. I gave a breakdown to these. I'm gonna read them though. I'm just gonna read them and then you pull them up because I want to answer this question. It says freedmen. Now, this is from the Encyclopedia of Law and Procedure, Volume 20, in the year 1906. 1906. This is well after Reconstruction ends. We're in a whole new century. And all of the legal corpuses at that time say the same exact thing. Slight variation here, slight variation there. I want to read it. It says freedmen, a term which refers to that class of persons and their descendants who were emancipated during the war between the American states. And it takes you to a reference in this source. And let me break this down real quick because people need to understand this, Ali, that we are the freedmen today. And if we're not, when did we stop becoming freedmen? A question that could not be answered on that thread. Couldn't be answered on that thread at all. It's a bunch of conjecture and tap dancing anyway. It says, I'm about to eat some chips.
Oh no,
okay. It says the terms freedman and freedwoman in 13th South Carolina statute, page 245. So right there, it stops there, right, with the comma. And well, it pauses there, I should say, with the comma. Because what it's doing is it's defining what freedman and freedwoman is. And you had this disingenuous, I believe him to be a black immigrant. He looks like an immigrant that was running around Twitter last night, purposely misconstruing what this says. So I want to read it. It says, defining persons of color as including, defining persons of color as including, that's the key word. No, it's two key words. Persons of color.
Yes, I was going to say that. Point out persons of color. Go ahead.
That's right. Persons of color as including all free Negroes, mulattoes, and mestizos, all freedmen, and all freed women. Let's pause right there. Because, you know, when people don't read for themselves and they listen to God, my man Oswald Bates out of New York, that, it sounds like he's really saying something, but he ain't saying nothing. I'll be listening to this dude like this dude is straight trash. It's trash. But what this breakdown is doing, is it's defining persons of color in its breakdown of freedmen and freed women. It's including freedmen and all freedmen and all freed women in the definition of persons of color, along with free Negroes, mulattoes, and mestizos. But it continues, and all descendants through either sex of any of these persons must be regarded as indicating a class which had been in slavery in contradistinction to previously free Negroes, mulattoes, and mestizos. Notice it doesn't use the term freed men and free women in that breakdown. Must be regarded as indicated, right? Because it's speaking to the last portion of this. Let me go back, because what this is speaking to is all freedmen and all free women. So it says all freedmen and all freed women and all descendants through either sex of any of these persons must be regarded as indicating a class which had been in slavery in contradistinction to previously free Negroes, mulattoes, and mestizos. Mestizos were not enslaved. That means mestizos could not possibly have been freedmen. And if a person is reading it correctly, they would be able to see that clearly. So I wanted to clear that up. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that, Ali, before I move to the next one.
No, I think the most important part is that you point out that this is really about determining who would be considered a person of color, right? And they're just kind of going through who that is, and you know, the misconstruing of these definitions is like retarded people can't read with comprehension, or they're just doing it to be disingenuous. So,
well, he's doing
anyway.
That guy, the neo-Negro guy, he's doing it to be disingenuous. I think he thinks that his 20 or 30 people in the Twitter space that he talks to makes him relevant or makes him important. We just want to take the time out just to debunk that stuff, because people read it for themselves and they were leaving comments on the tweets like, yo, that's effed up that this dude is intentionally misreading what this clearly says. So
yeah, but the main thing is the definition, right? The definition is very clear about what freedmen means, and it does mean the emancipated and their descendants. So
that's right.
And that's just one source, right? We have more than that. So
that's right.
You know,
I'm gonna read one more. I'm gonna read one more. The second part is the same. This is from Judicial and Statutory Definitions of Words and Phrases, Volume 3, 1904, page 2968. Statutory definitions of words. No, it's just people can you find descendants of freedmen in the legislature, or can you find it legally in some way? Okay, I got you. Freedmen, as now we cite this case before, the Connecticut case, Fairfield versus Lawson, but this particular book that was published in the year 1904 says freedmen as used in a will devising property to the Freedmen's Association was held to refer to that class of persons who were emancipated during the late Civil War and their descendants. And there's 2 or 3 areas in that particular court case that repeats that same thing, that freedmen means those lately emancipated from war and their descendants. So the question then becomes, when did we ever stop becoming freedmen outside of being manipulated into thinking that we were not by the teachings of the lost cause of the Confederacy that was allowed to be perpetuated, not just in schools in the South, but especially in schools in the North, which I thought was crazy because of the abolitionism that was going on up there. But when you read certain works, you start to see there were even ardent abolitionists that started to, once Reconstruction started to get into that phase of Ulysses S. Grant's presidency, they start to flip-flop, and they start to walk back on a lot of their commitments that they made to the freedmen before they were even freedmen, while they were still enslaved persons. See, once you start dissecting and cracking open this history, these things become much clearer to you. And Mercer Baradaran breaks that part down in her book, The Color of Money. I mean, family, the reparations movement moving forward, double entendre, because the reparations movement is in fact moving forward. And the double entendre version of that is more of a question in the line of Dr. King's question. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? We've seen what the chaos looks like. We watched as people that were supposed to be sacred cows. We didn't do sacred cowism over here. We just bigged up everybody. And we had equal respect for everybody. We didn't care if you was a professor or an activist. Didn't matter. In our eyes, you were equally respected until obviously that respect was no more. And that respect being no more doesn't come just off of some whim, saying, you know what, I don't like this guy today. No, when there's repeated patterns of behaviors, then well, okay, that's gonna cause some drama. And that's what happened. That's what happened over the past couple of days, and it's good because the wheat is being separated from the chaff, and the cream is rising to the top. And this Supreme Court case, Brother Ali, Brother Josh, it got all these people in their feelings because they know now that BTP is right. And the Democratic shills like Stephen the Lame and the rest of them guys that's talking about Frederick Douglass wasn't a freedman. Well, they've been caping for the Democratic Party this whole time. And the Democratic Party has openly stated that it does not support reparations. One of those headlines in the Hill said Democratic leaders wish talk of reparations would go away. So when you see neo-Negroes and these dad moms and all of these different people on these Twitter spaces, Luke, and Nikki's, and the Florida, all of these people, well, they are towing the message of that party line. We need this reparations shit to shut up. That's what Roland Martin been doing. They keep trying to guilt. Go ahead, bro.
Nah, I want to say that for the same reason as the colleges, right? They want to do diversity because they don't want to get into remedy. Because then when you have to get into remedy, then you have to focus on the freedom. When you're doing diversity,
that's right.
You can continue with legacy. You can wear, because the white billionaire has much more, has unique experience to offer, and because all these other people have unique experiences to offer to have a diverse experience to where you don't see the need to add freedmen. Okay, what makes you diverse? Because you're not. It's not remedial. And see, the thing is, some people have even expressed to say, well, man, this thing is going to carry over into employment, public employment. It's going to carry over into all these different things. Good. All this stuff needs to get into remedy. See, we need to do remedy first. Then, if y'all want to switch it up and consider all that other stuff, good. But first, we got to do remedy. Why? Because we should have had remedy before all this other stuff was even conceived. You should have had remedy first, so we can move forward with impartiality, and you can do whatever you want to do, and then because we'll have an equal footing on the society. Or some semblance of something close to what we could have had otherwise if we hadn't experienced those harms. So yeah. When we talk about, oh well, why is it that they want to continue? Why is it that like the Democratic Party does not actively support reparations? Because they want to continue with legacy and they want to continue with diversity for diversity's sake. Because if they have to talk about remedy, then you have to do remedy, and that will supplant that other stuff. But guess what? Hey, y'all keep playing around. This the Supreme Court gonna get you right anyway. You don't have to, like Brother Ali
That's
said,
right.
you don't have to be arguing and going back and forth with us. Supreme Court support our position. They gonna get you right too.
That's right. That's right. I'm not understanding the Naheem on your left. Somebody keeps saying on your left. I don't understand what that means. Oh, I do understand. My bad. I get it. I get it. I get it. I do understand. I had to think about it for a second. I had to think about it for a second. On your left. That's at the end of Avengers when they start coming through and Captain America getting bust down by Thanos. And he just stands up because he got to keep fighting. He said, on your left, on your left, Cap. And the next thing you know, the troops came through. Freedmen assemble. That's what I'm talking. I'm so excited about all of this. But I want to go to your point, Brother Josh, and about diversity. It's really messing up that grift. And what upholds that grift? Ali defined Negro earlier as a beast of burden, not a man, not a man. And we know that white supremacy's feathers are embedded in both wings of the bird that is Americana. We know that to be a fact, particularly in its political sphere. And on the right and on the left, we are nothing but beasts of burdens. We are the mules that you can put the sacks on. And in this case, the sacks are different groups of people that we carry. We carry them to the destination so that they can become a part of the building of something that does not exclude the mule, obviously, the beast of burden, because they don't see us as humans. They see us as the mule. And when we break that thinking out of the left, when we break that thinking, when that breaks through to them that y'all will no longer use us that way or even see us that way, that is when the victory is going to start happening. Because the more of our people wake up to the very things that we are breaking down tonight, that message then gets spread in the halls of Congress at the state level and at the federal level. And this is what a resurrection looks like, family. This is what a resurrection looks like. We are in the beginning stages of a freedmen renaissance. Oh yeah, I feel sanctified, bros. I feel like I'm catching the Holy Ghost or something up in here, and I ain't even a Christian. I just feel it. I just feel it. Sister, shout out to Sister Shanna that's putting the links in the chat. CBS Morning host Gail King says the Democrats don't support us receiving reparations. It's just a fact. Janet Yellen was asked on a trip when she went to Africa and she was in the slave dungeons. It's like, okay, well, now that you're here, does the administration support reparations for the American freedmen? Of course, they didn't use that term. And Janet Yellen said, nope, That is not something that our administration is exploring or something to that effect. They don't care about us, family. But now, oh, now we are on the minds of a lot of people because our names are getting out there. Our name and this Freedman thing is getting out there. I heard one of the brothers that y'all heard me going at on one of them channels. I'll be calling them the Phantoms because I only went at them because they went at Sister Camilla. The only reason why I went at them. But they've been using the term American freedmen as well. One of them brothers, at least. I don't know who's who over there. I'm a fall back. I ain't got no smoke for. I'm a fall back. Like I said, the only reason why I went at them, Josh, because they was going at Sister Camilla and they were wrong.
Yeah,
they were wrong.
Let me get on
Yeah,
my
go ahead,
point
bro.
that I always be making on this thing, and that is, you know, we like wake up on this stuff and we go to sleep on this stuff. We wake up on it. That's just what we do. That's who we are. So, you know, when you're in that type of environment, you know, you get really passionate about things that other people would think are relatively insignificant or small. You know, it's the same way as anybody that's really close to something. Like I was talking about Supreme Court rulings. When you read it, you don't understand legalese. You don't understand that their whole long PhD or you know their long papers and JDs. I don't know how to do this stuff, but they're long essays and stuff and speeches that people have, the tours and books that they write on one little word. One word you think is insignificant, you read over. That one word is a topic of large debate, a large effort, you know, research and all that kind of stuff is put on, you know, reconciling one word. And we do the same thing as reparations. You know, we're trying to get this thing all the way right and refined as possible. So what some people think that are minor contentions, we might see as bigger. But you know, at the same time, we take a step back and we like, you know, when you come outside of that, really the stuff that we have issues with, it ain't that big. It ain't that like crucial of a deal. What matters, what should matter most, is that we like when we play a even I'll give another example, playing basketball. A lot of people just see people running up and down, dribbling, passing, shooting. But it's a whole lot of intricacies, how you play pick and rolls, how hard you set the screen, when to roll, when to like set the screen and roll, when to pop off, like when to how you dribble, your footwork, all these small intricacies to the game like are a big deal to people who are students of the game or like try to be professional or semi-professional or you know watching Instagram videos thinking they're professional in the game, and the most people watching it aren't gonna appreciate that. But at the end of the day, if we're all still trying to hoop, you know, people will respect people's hoop ability in the same way people that are putting in work and they're putting in time and research that are passionate and then they see that you go to sleep on this and wake up on this every day, you know, we have respect on that end. The main part is we need to also uh, uh, value relationships with people and how we treat other fellow reparationists to make sure that the respect is always given. So I say that's a message that needs to vibe, especially at this time where you know freedmen. Okay, we got to win, and now we're seeing all kind of attacks, and these people they are going to attack freedmen. It'll be the people that you think otherwise should be supposedly supporting, you know, because they you're for equal treatment, you're for equality, you're for anti-racist and all this kind of stuff. But then when it's drying up your diversity grift, now you have to go against the Supreme Court, and consequently you have to go at freedmen because you don't want to do remedy, you want to stay with diversity, you know, uh, and so I
That
just
made
gotta
me
say,
think, Josh.
go ahead.
That made me think. I was talking earlier to one of our sisters, and it was like talking about the same thing. And I said, you know, most of the pushback that we're getting is from other quote unquote black people. It's really not even the Europeans that's providing all of this chaos you seeing all over Twitter about freedmen and the fighting about it. It's black people fighting with other black people. That's what's happening. So it's not even like it's anybody but our own people fighting about the fact that the Supreme Court said what they said, man. It's terrible.
Yeah, and part of it is because we got to close this thing out. But that right there is a whole program on how we became um, an extension of, like, I look at one party is over racism and another party is over e-racism. One party wants to, like,
Wait a minute. That was a ball. Hold on. You can't just let that go. And you just keep talking past that one. One party is about racism and the other party is about e-racism. Come on now.
yeah, because one party will let you be erased into the pool of everybody else in diversity, like reparations was already done. Like, you didn't, that we didn't build the country and build their party, you know. Um, because keep in mind, it was uh, it was the momentum behind that party was coming off of the civil rights movement. It's coming off of you know Johnson's party, Johnson's signing the Civil Rights Act and the law and all that kind of stuff, and that reshaped like how we looked at the Democratic Party. And then moving forward after that is further solidified with Clinton, um, and so on and so Carter, right? And Clinton and so on and so forth. And then Barack Obama pretty much locked everybody in. He pretty much was like the when you making a T-shirt and you put the iron on that and the blow dry or whatever on that sticky part on the T-shirt. That's what that was with Barack Obama. So it's like we're seeing the damages of that, and people still have to come off of it. We own, and a part of it is we just you know ah, how does it go? We strayed after the
Gods of Europe.
I wasn't going to say that.
Of whom we knew nothing.
Yeah, we strayed
That's
after
funny.
the ideals because, man,
That's right.
ideals is God. We strayed after the ideals of people on one wing of the same bird, who we knew nothing about their intentions, or we should have known. Because if they're not trying to do repair, then that tells you what they think about you, and that they're not here to serve your best interests. Yeah. So
Indeed.
let's
All right, we can start winding it down. I want to address this question real quick by Easy Axe. That says, that says Ugandan President Museveni apologized for slavery at
70.
BTP comments. So I don't really have a comment for that, right? But what I do want to do is take the opportunity to educate the people, because I was in a space with this clown, Tommy Sotomayor, that's cooking this dude. I don't even want to say I was cooking him. I was just educating him because he thinks he's smart. And I was shutting down every single thing he brought up. And he kept saying, because a lot of right-wingers, especially black ones, say, but Congress apologized for slavery. What they did was a house resolution. It was not an official apology. And we know that it's not an official apology because it's not codified into the law. When you go and research the Civil Liberties Act of 1989, the Reparations Act for Japanese Americans. And civil liberties just means civil rights, by the way. I want y'all to look that up as well. So that act is really saying the Civil Rights Act of 1989. But anyway, when you look that act up, what you're going to find is that not only did they receive money, they received an apology. And that apology is codified into positive law, right? This is a guarantee of non-repetition, if you will. We're going to make sure that that never happens to you again. We didn't get that. We didn't get that at all.
And it's codified in the United States Code, not the Code of Federal Regulations, right?
That's right. Well, hold on. Wait a minute. Yeah. I think it might be. No, I'm thinking about the federal statutes at large. That's what I'm thinking about. Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. So, we have this. Reparations is a total package for us American freedmen. And I don't like to use the term incremental because of the breakdown I did against Greg Carr and Roland Martin a couple years ago when he called the George Floyd Justice and Policing Bill an incremental victory when it wasn't, because it didn't get passed. And they were removing the qualified immunity out of it to appease the Republicans so that the Republicans could support it, because the Republicans need to appease their racist base, right? We just did a whole past couple hours really talking about the same thing. There's a pattern there. We got to kick in the door and be like, fuck that. This is what we want, and this is how we want it. And in order for us to do that, family, you already know, we got to get in a position of office. We have to become political candidates. We have to become political organizers, and we have to become political operatives. And that's what this space is about. This space is about moving, this platform, is about moving us into those fields. Be the power. We did the educational piece, and it was a culmination over the past 3 years that led up with confirmation. And like Ali said, it's not confirmation bias, it's a confirmation of the facts, because damn near everything they said in their concurring opinions, well, it's in line with damn near everything we said over the past 3 years.
Particularly in the letter that was given to him.
That's right. Particularly in that letter we submitted to the Supreme Court. There were just too many things that matched up for them to not have read it. And of course, we could want to beat our chests on that and toot our own. There's just certain things that I'm reading still in those opinions. I'm like, it's impossible that they didn't read our letter. Impossible. So I just wanted to add that, family. We can now move into the next phase of this thing. This is why we have opened up membership on our website, usadof.org. Put your application in. For those that have put applications in recently, I haven't been able to get back to you yet. But those that have put applications in already, y'all have already received emails. And we're just waiting for the next moves. We are just, and I ain't talking about on our behalf, on everybody else's behalf, because the email had instruction. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I just want to say to this comment, I know a little bit about like the history of, slavery across the continent, especially East Africa, because I actually visited there and I went to one of the former slave ports. So I got a chance to see some of that over there. But Uganda is it's highly unlikely our ancestors, more recent ones, came directly from Uganda to America. One reason also, Uganda is like way across the continent, so they have to travel like from the east side of Africa all the way to the west side of Africa, or they will have to travel from the east and go from a little bit further inland, cross over other like lands to get all the way to the seaport, go travel all the way around East Africa, through the Indian Ocean, around the southern tip of Africa, past South Africa, back up, and then go to probably South America or something like that.
So it was a symbolic.
Yeah,
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 okay.
yeah,
I'll take that. I'll
yeah.
take that.
And I mean, I don't know the context if he was trying to speak to us, if it was a symbolic thing, or if he just was apologizing for slavery in general. Because if it was the latter, he wasn't even talking to us. He's probably talking to, you know, other folks in Africa who were affected by slavery in Uganda.
Indeed, indeed.
One more question I meant to get to, then if we can make this the last one. Um, what was it, Muffin Nellen? All right. Will reparations be achieved through public pressure, legal challenges, or legislation proposed by the executive and supported by the Congress? How will we get there, and how long do you estimate it taking? What do y'all think on that?
It's on us. Number one, I'll answer the last part first. It's on us. That's number one. The reparations is going to, of course, public pressure and yes, legal challenges in certain areas, right, that help bolster our push. And if we bring these legal challenges correctly, if we use Eric Foner again, I'm gonna keep repeating it, said in his book, The Second Founding, that he's baffled at why today's civil rights activists are not using the 13th and 14th Amendment for their remedy. And he means as it pertains to us, the freedmen of today. So yes, there are legal actions that can be taken, legal challenges that can be made. We can challenge. I don't even know if I want to say that. I'm not even going to say that publicly. But there's some things that we can challenge that have recently been passed for other groups. It's like, okay, well, if y'all not, what are y'all taking into consideration when y'all are passing things, acts of legislation for other groups of people? Because if it's us, there's strict scrutiny instantly. Well, the challenge comes with the expectation that we're going to fail the test of strict scrutiny. And yes, there are pieces of legislation that we are working on, like right now, that we're working on, and we're perfecting our instruments, if you will. And we believe, especially one of them, that it will absolutely help in our fight for reparative justice. And that is we got some things on the table. We have some things on the table. So, shout out. No, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that just by saying that, you know, what we obviously we have to always go back to. Well, let me start with this. Public pressure, yes, that's definitely gonna be true. However, this is actually a legal challenge that was brought by somebody else, not even us. We just got a favorable judgment because if you can't if you're gonna try to do things a certain way, freedmen is gonna always come is gonna always be that in that part that's bending towards justice, right? Um, but I say legislation proposed by Congress. I don't know about the executive proposed by Congress, and there needs to be a majority freed in Congress in the South that is a rock that's not only proposing legislation, but blocking and obstructing legislation till we get ours passed. Do whatever we need to do, just like those racist Southern Democrats were doing back in the day to obstruct, block, and cut and carve us out of the New Deal policy, right? We need a majority freedmen South where we can popularly elect senators and House reps, governors even, um, that we popularly elect. That means we elect because we got the majority population, and then we have the power to move that. So, but I mean, two things to that. Number one, we gotta actually initiate this thing. We have to actually say, you know what, I'm gonna be intentional. And I'm gonna move this. We need money because we need to further the marketing and the education on the move, and we need it fast. Number two, we need to cut this mass immigration stuff off as much as we can. I don't, otherwise we just get overrun, and it'll never happen. So um, yeah, those are two things that we gotta get to work on.
Indeed, indeed. There's one
Hmm.
more question. You want to go, Ali?
No. What's the question? Let's do this.
Would Easy Axe asks, would that strategy have worked for Tulsa, Oklahoma claimants if they didn't achieve reparations? Then what or how are we to fight? That's two completely different dynamics. That's a state level
Yeah,
case,
right.
and from what I'm
And it
hearing,
was in the judiciary.
yeah, that's right. And from what I'm hearing, the lawyers put together a horrible, horrible case. Horrible. I just have not been able to read it yet to really give a breakdown to, you know, give a proper breakdown to that question. But I can say that it's just completely different. Reparations is not going to come through the judiciary. What they should have done, and this is my opinion, was drafted up a reparations bill in the legislature and push that public pressure, like Muffin Mello
Right.
said, public pressure, and then had them pass that in the legislative body so that the state of Oklahoma, which just recently gave away, I think half of Oklahoma to some quote unquote red Indians, then
Of the
surely,
of the flies save holding tribes.
that's right, then surely these elders can receive recompense.
Absolutely. You're right
So,
about that, bro. It should have
mhm,
been a piece of legislation that went through the assembly of the state and signed off on by the governor for these people. It shouldn't have been in the judiciary like that. I mean, obviously we see it didn't need to be there. That was a
that's right.
waste of fucking time. They
Mhm.
could have did that through the legislature. Yeah, man. Come on, yo. God damn, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So, and I had to break that down last night. Shout out to brother Rashad. He was holding a space about it. Honors for the contribution, Easy Acts. He was holding a space on it, and I had to come in there and like break that part down because it's people are somber about it. And of course, when I seen the news, I felt the same way everybody else felt about it. But I have to look at things technically also, right? We gotta not move off of emotion. Even if it's emotional, that doesn't mean we have to move off of emotion. And it's like, well, that this should have been done at the state legislature. That the state legislative body should have been, they should have passed a bill that was properly drafted up for recompense, and restitution for damages and harms as the last living survivors. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the
Yeah,
uh, Rosewood case as well. I'm going to start
I,
looking at these things.
I didn't get a chance to look at the case. I would have loved to have looked at it. Before I so I can say for certain, like where they failed at. I know in general we wouldn't want the legislature to be, the the court to be the one to decide on reparations, or they put that in their hands, because essentially you can just be left up to one racist judge, and then they can decide your fate. But I do want to read the case that they made, because maybe this is something that could be elevated if they are made the right arguments. But if they made poor arguments, then it wouldn't make sense anyway. You can just catch the L.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, fam. Let's wrap this thing up, man. This was another powerful stream. Y'all make sure y'all go back and listen to it from the beginning. We was talking some talk a little spiciness about what's going on in this movement. It's a lot of crazy stuff that's going on in this reparations movement, and a lot of people that some may hold in high regard. They're not looking real stand up nowadays. They're not looking stand up at all. And we only ever have one mission in this space, and that's reparations. And our goal was to help teach. Help teach. We made a lot of adjustments along the way. A lot. But the mission remained the same. And we made adjustments because we didn't want to just run around saying we were right, even if something was wrong. We made adjustments because we wanted to be right, so that we could present the right information to the people. Information that just simply can't be challenged. Can't be. Not properly challenged. I mean, anybody could challenge something,
Right.
but you won't be able to refute it or rebut it at all.
Right. Exactly. And the last thing I would say is just to reiterate that in this case, this affirmative action case, our families were referred to as a class of people. The freedmen. The freedmen families are a class of people for whom all of the reparative reparative remedy measures were put in place or enacted into law specifically for these families. If you are saying that you are not a part of this class of people, then you're cutting yourself off from all of the remedies that were enacted during the Reconstruction period that all of these justices were referencing. Someone asked on a Twitter post or made the statement on a Twitter post that they didn't understand why this term freedman was being elevated to the level that it was by everyone. So, well, there's a reason for it. And that reason is very simple. They expressed it in the court case. Everything that we're looking for in terms of how to remedy our families has been enacted during that time period, specifically for these people known historically and legally as freedmen. So if you're not a part of that, then there's no remedy for you, right? And all of this repair that you're looking for, you might as well stop looking for it, because it's rooted there. It's anchored there. This is where it's at. This is what Thomas is saying. It's what Kavanaugh is saying. This is what they're all saying. Even the ones who dissented, this is what they're saying. Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're all saying the same thing. That is that the remedy is actually right there during that time period with those particular laws for our specific families. That's one thing that we know that they all can agree on. So the bottom line is, if you let people cut you off from that because of their personal feelings or their ideas to push some acronym or whatever the case is, then you're crazy. If you listen to Stephen Hunter talking, whatever that nonsense is he's talking on Twitter, you're crazy, right? Stephen, people like Stephen is nothing but a Democratic shield, like it has been said so many times over by various people, all on Twitter and everything. Stephen needs to go and feed his kids. That's what he needs to do. That's what he needs to do. He needs to go ahead on and feed his kids and stop hanging out on Twitter all day and night in everybody's doggone Twitter space. I thought this man was an attorney or something. This dude be day in and day out on Twitter or in somebody's Twitter space. Like, I'm like, God dang, man. Like, what? How do you get work done if you 24 hours in somebody's damn Twitter space? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, man, you know, so that's the deal. I'm just like, you know, you guys gotta really see this thing for what it is. It's been laid out for you, man. It's not. This is not no made up shit. It's not like, yo, these guys are tripping. Nope, that's not what it is. It's not what it is, man. So anyway, with that, I'm gonna say peace. What's up, John? Go ahead.
You telling me if they against this freedmen thing, they want to cut themselves off, they need to go to the back of the diversity line at the Supreme Court and cut off?
Yeah, get at the back of the diversity line. You know what I'm saying?
Go ahead. Back of the line where we found you.
That's right. Go back to the back of the line and stay there. and you think, you know, put you in the corner with a dunce cap on, and you stand there and you think about your actions.
Don't do that, y'all. Don't do that. Don't do that. You don't want to be that person. Yeah.
Indeed. All right, family. Look, man, you already know about to end it. Thank you all for watching. Another powerful stream. Make sure y'all read that Politico article. Make sure y'all read that Politico article that we were reading from earlier. What was it? The name of that joint? I can't see it right now because I'm standing in my kitchen. But
about how white people stole affirmative action.
Yeah.
Something
y'all gotta
like
read that. Something like that. You gotta read that. Gotta read that article. It is the best breakdown on this affirmative action case because dude gets it right, as opposed to Adam Serwer, who wrote that garbage in the Atlantic. And we're almost finished with our rebuttal. So y'all stay tuned for that as well. And I'll leave you all with the motto of our platform, which is don't just fight the power. Don't just fight the power, become the power. We're at that stage now, fam. It's time to become the power. And I'm going to be taking all the information that I learned from Tesla Figaro's Push the Line Bootcamp. And that's I'm going to augment this BTP Civics Guide with that information just really soon. So y'all be on the lookout for that. Again, don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.